Chapter 311. Gathering of the Five Experts. 2. Jian Chen's sword struck out immediately, as it left behind a single mirror image. Slowly, the mirror image turned into a dense net of mirror images that enshrouded the enemy. Several metallic clangs could be heard as the weapons struck against each other in a continuous motion, the energy scattering around the area and leaving a mess. This youth is quite strong if he's able to fight Zhigu to a standstill. The fire sword-wielding youth muttered under his breath with some shock. This youth is quite complex to be able to fight Zhigu on a scale like this, without being put at a disadvantage. Geniuses are too scary. When he grows older, he will definitely be a person of major influence and power. My lord, should we go rope him into our grace? The purple-robed man asked the fire sword-wielding youth. The sword-wielder looked on with a flash of killing intent. With his strength, he'll definitely try to fight for the #1 spot in the gathering of the mercenaries. He is a rival. With that, the purple-robed man understood the meaning of the youth's words and went quiet. On the other side, a youth around the age of 30 years old wore a white robe with golden linings. Both of his hands were wrapped up against his chest as he watched the two fight. It seems Jetta Wukong's men have provoked a decent fighter. I didn't think he'd be so young though. That's right. That youth is quite decent if he's able to fight Zhigu to a standstill. If his strength was limited by just a small amount, it would be his defeat for sure. While Jetta Wukong's strength isn't as good as Zhigu, with a ruler armament, he can only be matched up against others with a ruler armament. Otherwise, no one aside from a Heaven Saint Master would be an opponent for him. The white-robed man by his side said, "It would seem that the youth will die here. When it comes to Jetta Wukong's temper, absolutely no one in this world can escape from it after provoking him. That might not be the case here, Lord Qingji. Do you see that yellow-robed girl behind him?" The man spoke with a smile. Hearing that, the one named Qingji turned to look at the girl. Unable to move his eyes away from the sight, he said, "What a stunning girl. Her face is as cold as ice. Her eyes even give off a grim feeling. This is absolutely not a simple girl." The middle-aged man laughed and said, "Lord Qingji, do you see the golden longbow on her back?" Qingji immediately looked away from the girl and onto the longbow on her back. He said nothing after. The middle-aged man said, "I don't recognize what bow that is, but I can only assume it's not an ordinary one. It isn't her saint weapon, because I can't detect any saint force from it. So, I can only guess that Bao is actually a second uncle. Could it be that Bao is a..." Qingji spoke with shock. "I don't dare confirm it." The man shook his head. First technique of the Divine Spear's 3 techniques, Shadows of the Spear. A voice cried out as the middle-aged man's spear began to fill the air with its shadow, stabbing toward Jian Chen. The shadows of the spear were numerous, making it difficult to tell which one was real and which one was fake. Each one of them were like the real one, as it released a strong amount of pressure. This technique was almost parallel to Jian Chen's sword strikes. "That's an Earth-tier battle skill," a person cried out. "An Earth-tier battle skill? That's second to a Heaven-tier battle skill. I didn't think I would be able to see one today. I've heard a Heaven-tier battle skill was enough to change the winds of battle, and even distort the world. Who knows what an Earth-tier battle skill will be capable of?" Jian Chen let out a sneer as he closed his eyes. His right hand continued to blur as the sword in his hand covered the air with phantom images of the sword that rivaled the spears in numbers. Ding 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 ding. Following a series of metallic sounds in a short amount of time, the man and Jian Chen continued to fight for 100 blows. The two were traveling at speeds so fast they were almost invisible to the naked eye. The only difference was that while the man was relying on his battle skill in order to strike at such high speeds, Jian Chen was relying on his own strength to lash out at equal speeds. "What a fast speed!" the fire sword youth cried out in shock. "His sword is too fast. Even I find it hard to keep track of the real one." The purple-robed man spoke in amazement. "What a fast sword! Just what did he do in order to reach a speed where he could fight against the battle skill of Zhigu?" Qingji asked in amazement. "Even I'm curious about this. A 6th cycle Earth Saint Master with the wind attribute would find it difficult to achieve such a speed. His saint force is clearly not of the wind attribute, yet he is still able to achieve such a speed. It makes me feel too astonished. Just what is helping his arms swing that fast? Second technique of the Divine Spear, Divine Dragon's Tail. A bright red spear flew into the air before smashing downward with an extreme amount of force onto Jian Chen. At the same time, an intense amount of pressure pressed down onto him, as if it was a heavy stone, causing Jian Chen to feel unable to advance a single step. Without fear, Jian Chen lifted his sword, and with a large amount of sword qi, he met the spear head-on. Bang! Following a loud explosion, a large ripple of energy surrounded Jian Chen, as he was forced back several steps with his arms trembling slightly. Following his backward momentum, 2 small ditches could be seen from the drag. As an Earth Tier battle skill, the second technique and first technique were equal in strength almost. Third technique, all-conquering Divine Spear. Just as Jian Chen regained his footing, Zhigu roared once more as the fire-red-colored light began to shine brightly. A large amount of compressed berserk energy began to form on the tip of the spear. Jian Chen suddenly felt as if that this spear was undodgeable, as if the spear was locked onto him. The only option left was to take it head-on. Jian Chen closed his eyes slowly, as he carefully monitored Zhigu's position. At this moment, his spirit and the light wind sword in his hand established a deep connection that caused the sword to grow colder, as a bright amount of sword qi burst out. As the sword was completely enveloped, it suddenly left Jian Chen's hand with a burst of silver light before shooting forward. Bang! Another loud bang could be heard, as the compressed energy on the spear's tip lost its equilibrium. Exploding violently, the explosion looked as if there was a beautiful flower on the spear. It continued to expand as the bright red light stunned everyone that saw it. The dirt from the ground went flying as the powerful energy scattered through the entire area and forced everyone around 100 meters back, while Jian Chen and Zhigu were drowned within the energy. In half a moment, the energy dissipated completely, revealing Jian Chen and Zhigu's positions to everyone else. The 2 men looked completely intact and had only suffered a small bit of damage from the energy blast, with their clothes a bit disheveled. The binding on Jian Chen's hair had already been lost, causing Jian Chen's long hair to dance in the hurricane-like wind. In his right hand was the same silver light wind sword. Right in front of him, Zhigu remained in his spear-wielding stance, while his body continued to remain in that position without moving. The hair that used to reach down to his waist had been severed, so that only the hair from the neck up remained. Suddenly, Zhigu's throat began to show some blood before a small thin line began to expand across his throat. In a split second, the line became bright red in color, and in the next second, Zhigu's entire head separated from his body and fell to the ground. Everyone looking at this spectacle went into an uproar, as they all looked at Jian Chen and Zhigu's corpse with complete and utter shock. In that split second, they all didn't know what had happened. They could all see that Zhigu had launched the final attack of his Earth Tier battle skills. But Jian Chen had neither died nor suffered any heavy injuries. They hadn't expected this outcome, where Jian Chen would stand without a scratch after the Earth Tier battle skill was released. Even more so, they didn't imagine that the unbelievably strong Zhigu would have his head drop to the ground. Just how did Zhigu die? What happened in that one split second? Everyone began to think about these questions as they swirled around in their minds. To dare kill one of our Jedi clansmen, you are seeking death. In that moment, a furious person roared as a 30-year-old youth with a meter-long sword flew at Jian Chen. A fire-like saint force began to billow out from him, causing everyone to look at him with shock. What a strong burst of energy! Could he be a heaven saint master? A few of the Earth Saint Masters who thought themselves as the strongest began to look on with shock. Even Jian Chen's face grew deathly serious as he saw the ruler armament in the youth's hand. This would be the second ruler armament he had seen in this place, and the both of them were swords of the fire element. Die! The youth stared at Jian Chen as he swung down his ruler armament. Jian Chen was already familiar with what a ruler armament was, so without daring to meet it head-on, he retreated backward. At the same time, a bright golden light flashed from behind as it flew toward the ruler armament. Chapter 312, Gathering of the 5 Experts 3. The golden light that appeared behind Jianchen suddenly struck against the ruler armament with a loud ear-ringing sound. Another blast of energy flew out from the collision and spread out toward everyone watching. Those with the strength of a great Saint Master, within 100 meters, were instantly sent flying away. Against such an intense amount of energy, only those with an Earth Saint Master level of strength would be able to stand their ground. The golden light that had struck against the youth's ruler armament caused him to be shocked before the explosion, and shockwave sent him flying back several meters. When he regained his footing, his face was already beginning to pale. Ruler armaments were extremely strong, and when two ruler armaments clashed in such a close proximity, even an Earth Saint Master would be hit with a strong feedback. That recent explosion that happened right in front of the youth's eyes had clearly dealt some minor damage to him. But because his strength wasn't all that strong, if he were to discard his ruler armament, he would be weaker than Jigu. The youth holding the ruler armament looked at the longbow-wielding girl behind Jian Chun with a terrified look as he spoke out, stuttering, "Are you a ruler armament?" The girl didn't reply to the man and lowered her bow slightly. Then, her hand gripped the longbow tightly and prepared to fire off a second arrow. "I didn't think there'd be another ruler armament here, let alone a longbow-modeled one." The 2-meter fire sword-wielding man spoke with amazement toward the longbow. Qin Ji let out a long sigh as he stared at the sight with a complicated look. "Second uncle, it seems that your guess was correct. That longbow is definitely a ruler armament." The middle-aged man standing right next to Qin Ji smiled faintly. "I truly didn't think that longbow would be a ruler armament. How unexpected. That means there are 6 ruler armaments here. The chances of killing those magical beasts have just risen. It is a shame that Jigu has died, taking out a good amount of our forces." Qin Ji laughed. "Second uncle, although Jigu has died, another person with an unexpected amount of strength has appeared. It seems to me that he is by no means weaker, and will be a great boost to our strength." "That is correct." The appearance of the Solunar Bao caused the youth who came out to avenge the death of Jigu to waver before standing still and shouting, "Who are you?" "That is my question to you." Jianchen spoke out calmly. Although he was afraid of getting hit with a ruler armament, he didn't show it on his face. The youth looked at Jianchen with disdain before looking back to the girl and spoke proudly. "This one is called Jetta Wukong." Within this isolated world, Jetta Wukong's name had been known to everyone as one of the 5 experts. Jianchen, who had been scoffed by Jetta Wukong, laughed coldly. "So you're Jetta Wukong. You're nothing much then. If you were to go without your ruler armament, then you would not even be an opponent for me to kill. You are courting death." Jianchen's words reversed the scale of Jetta Wukong, causing him to immediately blow up in anger. Holding his ruler armament, he flew at Jianchen. But before he could get far with his outstretched ruler armament, he immediately stopped. The girl had notched her Solunar Bao once more, and was already aiming the bow at him. Jetta Wukong's face went white for a moment. While they both had ruler armaments, a bow always held the advantage in a long-range battle. If he were to be shot, even if he were to block it with his ruler armament, the mighty explosion that would happen after would force him to eat up a loss. To him, eating up a loss was not an outcome he wanted. He would definitely come out the loser since the golden arrows were too fast for him to dodge. Thus, Jetta Wukong was stuck in a difficult situation to retreat from. Seeing how Jetta Wukong was stuck in a difficult situation where he could neither retreat or advance, a laugh could be heard in the crowd. Hee, just what lively event is happening here? Who's fighting? It's surely a large battle if I can feel the mountains shake. You've scared this girl half to death almost. With that, a pink-robed girl walked past the crowd with small quick steps. By her side, she was followed by 2 expressionless men. This was a fully matured girl, who looked to be around 26 years old. Her entire body seemed to exude an endless amount of charm, and with every movement, it seemed that she was able to enrapture anyone nearby. The pink-robed girl's appearance could only be described as devastatingly beautiful, that was exceedingly rare under the heavens. With her charm exuding from her body, she was as deadly as the yellow-robed girl in terms of beauty and killing intent, giving everyone else the feeling, a desire to conquer her. Ha ha ha. This girl comes from the Tianmu clan with the first name Ling. I hope every big brother here looks after me carefully." The pink-robed girl laughed with a crisp sound almost as if it carried an enchanting spell. Those with a low control of themselves began to feel lost. Tianmu Ling, could she be the Tianmu Ling from the Five Experts? A person cried out in shock. While everyone knew the names of the Five Experts, some of them had never seen what they had looked like before. Everyone looked at Tianmu Ling with a strange look, as they all thought to themselves with some shock. None of them had imagined that Tianmu Ling would be a charming girl, and was at the same time a little unconventional in her attitude. Tianmu Ling slowly looked around herself before seeing the still motionless figure of Jetta Wukong and laughed. "This younger brother is quite strong. The sword in your hand must be some sort of strange saint weapon, to be able to cause this little girl's heart to flutter with such fear." With that, Tianmu Ling took on a scared expression, making herself seem quite pitiful. Jetta Wukong had an embarrassed smile on his face, as he tried to use this as a way to escape from the situation. He slowly put down his ruler armament and spoke proudly. "This one is called Jetta Wukong. This saint weapon is the treasure of my Jetta clan. Rumors say that it is the byproduct of the first generation, and possesses a boundless amount of energy. It is so strong that if a sixth cycle Earth Saint Master were to use this sword, then it would be capable of killing a Heaven Saint Master." "Wow, how strong!" Tianmu Ling had a look of shock on her face, as she put her jade-white fingers up to cover her mouth. This type of reaction caused Jetta Wukong to feel even more proud of himself. Then what might the other big brothers be called? Tianmu Ling looked at everyone else that had some sort of authority within the crowd. "This one is Qingji." The white and gold-lined robed youth cupped his hands together with a gentle smile. "This one is called Dugafeng." The other man with a 2-meter-long sword made of a fiery red color cupped his hands as well. "Wah, Qingji Dugafeng, and Jetta Wukong. You three are all men this little girl has heard before." This girl didn't think that 3 of the 5 experts would appear right in front of her, or that these 3 elite big brothers would be so handsome that my heart would start to dance and leap. Tianmu Ling was like an 18-year-old girl that was staring with eyes of infatuation. It was as if she was meeting her adored idol, as her eyes suddenly turned into stars. "And what might little sister be called? Could you call me big sister?" Tianmu Ling turned to look at the yellow-clothed girl with a smile. "Umph." The girl snorted before turning her head in disgust. Tianmu Ling seemed to have ignored that as she turned toward Jian Chun with a smile in one smooth transition. "Then this little brother must be one of the 5 experts, Shenxiangran. This one is Jian Chun, not Shenxiangran." Jian Chun spoke calmly. A look of surprise appeared on Tianmu Ling's face before instantly going away as she laughed. "Little brother Jian Chun, you are quite handsome. So handsome that I almost went crazy. You should take responsibility for this." After hearing this, although Jian Chun knew that Tianmu Ling was only joking, he couldn't help but feel a giant sweat drop fall down his forehead. The yellow-clothed girl suddenly spat something out in anger. "Oh, could little sister here be jealous?" Tianmu Ling laughed as she looked at the other girl while ignoring the insult that was thrown out. The beautiful face of the girl suddenly turned red as her chest began to heave up and down, before staring angrily at Tianmu Ling. She started to fume angrily as she growled, "You should speak less garbage. Aiyo, little sister has a large temper. This can't do, girl, you must be gentle, or else no man will like you." Tianmu Ling beamed. The yellow-clothed girl said nothing else. Suddenly, another set of footsteps could be heard as a 27-year-old youth, wearing white slowly came into view. Jian Chen quickly took notice of this youth. From his appearance, Jian Chen's eyes suddenly took on a dangerous gleam. This person was Shenxiangran. The differences between all of the 5 experts that were there, including Tianmu Ling, was every single person had a few strong experts with them. However, Shenxiangran was traveling by himself. Shenxiangran didn't notice Jian Chen yet, but the moment he saw the bright clothes of one of the people, his eyes took notice of the yellow-clothed girl and suddenly stopped. In an instant, the light wind sword appeared in Jian Chen's hand. He couldn't reveal the secret with his soul sword just yet, so the sword stayed in his hand. With a silver flash of light, he flew toward Shenxiangran before stabbing at his throat with unbelievable speed. He had to kill Shi Xiangran before he could utilize his barrier, otherwise, once that barrier went up, then he would be invincible while using his ruler armament. Shi Xiangran hadn't yet realized Jian Chen was there. But the very moment he had noticed the yellow-clothed girl, he instinctively thought to the Salinar bow and unveiled his barrier without hesitation. The very moment the light-wind sword was about to pierce through his throat, a transparent barrier suddenly appeared over his body. Bow! As the barrier appeared, it suddenly shook violently as the sword qi on the light-wind sword touched the very first layer of Shi Xiangran's throat. As it pierced the first layer of skin, it didn't reach any farther before being shot back out like a bullet due to the barrier. Jian Chen's eyes flashed dangerously once more as the light-wind sword began to release an even larger amount of sword qi, as he tried to stab at Shi Xiangran's throat once more. Shi Xiangran's barrier began to shake violently, but because of its unbelievably strong defenses, the light-wind sword was unable to tear it apart. As the barrier continued to expand, the light-wind sword was driven farther and farther back. Jian Chen let out a sigh in dejection before taking back the light-wind sword. If he was just faster by a second, then he would have been able to kill Shi Xiangran. Seeing the light-wind sword shoot away from him, Shi Xiangran suddenly turned pale with fright, because he had absolutely no idea when the sword had approached him. He reached up with his hands to touch his neck, only to feel a small sliver of blood leak out from the wound onto his finger. Shi Xiangran's face turned white at that. At the sight of blood, his forehead began to sweat heavily. It was at that moment that he had realized he was one step away from knocking on the doors to the underworld, and nearly stepped through them. Chapter 313. Joining hands. Shi Xiangran's face continued to turn white at that. At the sight of blood, his forehead began to sweat heavily. It was at that moment that he had realized he was one step away from knocking on the doors to the underworld, and nearly stepped across it. A furious anger began to swell up within Shi Xiangran's chest, as he glared dangerously at Jian Chen. His eyes began to exude a treacherous amount of killing intent that went undisguised. Just now, if he hadn't been able to activate his barrier in time, he would have become a corpse. Furthermore, to die at the hands of someone that was younger than he was, to the high and mighty Shi Xiangran, who spent his entire life being spoiled as the genius of the clan, was a humiliation that he could never forget. If I don't kill you today, then I will no longer write my name as Shi Xiangran. Shi Xiangran's eyes went bloodshot as he flew toward Jian Chen with an angry yell. From his space belt, he took out a small fist-sized iron chunk and threw it into the air. Quickly, the iron seal enlarged in midair and blocked the sunlight from above, with a circumference of about 200 meters. Covering the sky of everyone nearby, the seal immediately came crashing down to the ground, with a heavy wave of energy. The moment De Gufeng saw the iron seal above their heads, his eyes flashed dangerously before immediately taking out a long sword and slashed up with a fiery blaze. The very moment he slashed his sword, the surrounding temperature in the air suddenly increased by a terrifying amount. Even the 1-meter-long sword wielder Jetta Wukong looked up with disdain. Sneering, he leaped up into the air and struck at the seal with his sword of fiery blaze. Immediately, the temperature in the surrounding area increased once more, causing the vegetation in the area to dry up straight away. Even the trees that were reaching high into the air were beginning to shrivel up, as if all of the water inside them was being evaporated. The fire was so strong, it was almost as if everyone was in a sea of fire. Qin Ji's face grew extremely dark as a machete appeared within his hand. The machete was surrounded by a cyan glow, but the shape of the machete itself was strange. The machete had a saw blade-like design where each tooth seemed to be inexplicably sharp. Qin Ji raised his machete and leaped into the air toward the seal of Treasure Mountain. With a single slash of cyan light, he struck out at the seal at the same time. Tianmu Ling revealed a long whip and laughed. This little brother has quite the temper. I haven't offended you, so could you please not go around randomly using things to smash into people? With that, her arm shook and brought the whip flying straight up at the seal. Whoosh! A flash of golden light flew past Jian Chen as the girl let loose her bowstring. An arrow of pure saint force condensed into shape as it flew at an unbelievable speed toward the seal. At this moment, the 5 experts had all unleashed their attacks, each with their own ruler armament. The only difference was that 4 experts along with the yellow-clothed girl were fighting against one. Shi Xiangran's seal of Treasure Mountain encompassed 200 meters in circumference, which towered over everyone there. In his rage-induced stupor, he had failed to notice that he had offended everyone there. By the time Shi Xiangran realized this fact, it was far too late. Bang! The 6 ruler armament crashed against each other, emitting a large ear-ringing sound. Immediately, the ground began to shake and mountains started to tremble, as the largest amount of energy that day flew out from every corner as a result and blew over the 5 experts and Jianshen. Everyone was unable to keep grounded to the floor and could only fly backward. With each step they tried to use to anchor themselves, they could only succeed in leaving a small footprint. Ha! The explosion rocked the ears of everyone in the vicinity with an explosive sound. Everyone tried to use their Saint Force to coat themselves in it, in order to protect themselves from the blast radius. Out of everyone present, the only one who felt safe at all was Shi Xiangran, because of his barrier. The defenses to his barrier were so strong that despite the intense aftermath, he would not be harmed. The worst that would happen was that he would be blown backward. 4 of the ruler armaments returned to their owner's hand as the 5th ruler armament. The seal of Treasure Mountain was hit by a combined amount of force high up in the air. Instead of landing back down to the ground, it returned to Shi Xiangran's hand. The energy that had exploded outward completely destroyed the area, as well as throwing all nearby trees into the air, and flattened the grass before incinerating it. On the ground, there was a single fissure, with a large series of spiderweb cracks extending out from it. After a while, the energy finally subsided into a tranquil scene. For a kilometer, not a single blade of grass could be seen, and the trees were scattered about. Shi Xiangran, who was situated inside the barrier, looked as if his face could leak water. In his heart, he had felt inexplicable resentment. He hadn't thought that in his one single strike, he would somehow offend everyone there. Thus he blamed everything on Jianshen. Tianmu Ling returned the whip before adopting a face of traumatized fear, and placing a hand to her chest. How scary! That iron seal is too scary. Big brother, I can only assume that you are Shi Xiangran of the 5 experts. Aiyo, why can't this little girl remember when I offended Big Brother? Just why is it that the moment Big Brother appeared, he wanted to kill us all? It's a good thing this little girl has some self-protection, and so many big brothers to help us in this time of need. Otherwise, this little girl would have been smashed to the ground. Hearing Tianmu Ling speak, Shi Xiangran's face grew even darker and darker. Before he could say anything, his face instantly returned to normal, and then adopting an apologetic expression, and cupped his hands together. I apologize everyone, when I saw a hated enemy of mine, I had somehow made a silly mistake. This one is called Shi Xiangran. I've no intentions on being anyone's enemy. I hope no one pays too much attention to this. Turning to point at Jianshun, he said, Do you dare to see who's stronger between us two? Or could it be you only know how to hide behind a woman? If it's like this, how are you any different from a coward? Shi Xiangran spoke with disdain to Jianshen. Jianshen's face grew dark as he stared dangerously at Shi Xiangran, with an undisguised amount of killing intent. As a large amount of Saint Force concentrated in his hand, and formed the light wind sword before slowly walking toward Shi Xiangran. Right now, he planned to use the azure and violet sword chi, in an attempt to test an idea. Although he wasn't sure if they would be able to destroy the barrier, Jianshen could still wish. Seeing how Jianshen still desired to fight Shi Xiangran, the yellow-clothed girl couldn't help but feel anxious before running up to stop Jianshen. Facing Shi Xiangran with an angry look, she spoke, Shi Xiangran, you despicable bastard. If it weren't for that barrier protecting you, you would have been killed long ago. Just what qualifications do you have to issue a challenge? If you are a man, then get rid of your barrier and fight like a man would. Shi Xiangran's face suddenly grew unsightly as he heard the girl's words. Those words were coincidentally the very words that stabbed at Shi Xiangran's weak point. Staring icily at her, he roared, You repulsive bitch! You! The girl started as her eyes furiously bore a hole into Shi Xiangran. From her eyes, It seemed as if she was ready to cut Shi Xiangran into a million pieces. At that moment, Qinji walked in between the two and cupped his hands. "Fellow friends, please listen to my words for a moment." Before waiting for the two to respond, he said, "We have all gathered here today in order to find out the answer to the secret here. We shouldn't be wasting any times on useless things. Right in front of us is the Immortal's Cave. This much everyone can attest to seeing. But there are several strong magical beasts guarding it. Even if we all have ruler armaments, it would still be very difficult to enter the area. So, I wish that we can all put aside our grievances and work together. As long as we can defeat all the magical beasts, we will be able to enter the cave and see the inner treasures. Otherwise, I'm afraid we will never be able to enter since there is only 10 days left until this round of the competition is over." That's right. If we want to enter the cave, then there is no other choice but to join hands. Those magical beasts are far too strong for us individually, said Dugu Feng with his fire sword in hand as one of the men with the ruler armament. "Ha ha ha, that's right. Fellow big brothers, it would be better for you to temporarily give up your hatred. Getting into the cave is of the utmost priority. I've heard there was a heaven-tier battle skill in there. That is a monumental prize. Plus, this is the cave of a senior cultivator. Even if there isn't a heaven-tier battle skill, there'll definitely be a treasure of sorts in there." Tian Muling said, "Right now there's only 10 days until the end of this round of the competition. When we get transported out by the strange energy, we'll be powerless to try and remain here. If we wish to enter the cave, then we must all unite." The purple-robed man next to Dugafeng spoke. Hearing his words, Jian Chen's eyes continued to flash continuously with some hesitation. In the end, he reclaimed his light wind sword. A heaven-tier battle skill was something he desperately wanted. Joining the gathering of the mercenaries was for the sake of obtaining one, so that he could hand it over to the Changyang clan. One could imagine that if the Changyang clan were to obtain a heaven-tier battle skill, their strength would improve greatly. If the Changyang clan's strength was to increase to a sufficient amount, then he wouldn't need to hide from the Huayan sect and return to the gentle home that he remembered, as well as the kind and loving mother he had. Chapter 314. Division of People. Shi Xiangran sneered as he shot a venomous glare at Jianchen. "You're lucky, I'll let you go for now." With that, Shi Xiangran returned the seal of Treasure Mountain to his space ring. But the barrier remained activated to protect himself. Jianchen couldn't help but fire back. "You should stay in that tortoise shell forever. Let's see just how long that will last." For the barrier that a saint ruler paid a heavy price to make be called a tortoise shell, Shi Xiangran's face went ashen as he heard Jianchen. Upon hearing those words, Qinji, Jie Wukong, Dugafeng, and Tian Muling all began to smile unnaturally. "Ha ha ha. For someone to say the barrier left behind by a saint ruler's saint force is a tortoise shell, this little girl has lived for some time. But this is the first time I've heard of such a thing. Little brother Jianchen is far too unique." Tian Muling laughed. "Well then everyone, there's not much time left. We should plan accordingly now that we have 6 ruler armaments here. We'll definitely be able to destroy those magical beasts and reduce the casualties to an absolute minimum." Qinji spoke. By now, the battle was over. That intense amount of energy that had rippled across the area for a kilometer had finally receded, and many Earth Saint Masters had already returned. No wonder they are called the 5 experts, their strength is far too strong. Just what was that 200-meter object? It seemed extremely powerful. I heard them call it a ruler armament. Strange, just what is that? I've never heard of such a thing before. Many of the men there began to chat among themselves in quiet voices with a fear of speaking too loud. There are a total of 4 magical beasts. Each one of is a rare species, and are individually very strong. It requires 2 of us with a ruler armament in order to fight one of them to a standstill. I can only guess that it would take 3 of us with a ruler armament in order to kill one of the magical beasts. We have 6 ruler armament users, meaning that we can kill 2 of them. The other 2 will have to be dealt with by the others. Qinji spoke seriously. We have plenty of Earth Saint Masters. With the last 2 magical beasts, they'll be able to deal with them. Although no one else would have a ruler armament, the amount of Earth Saint Masters is enough to be able to handle any problem. Dugafeng said. That's correct. Qingji nodded his head. If we all work together, then we will be able to break past the defensive line of the magical beasts. I agree to this plan. Dugafeng endorsed. I agree as well. Jetta Wukong spoke out. 3 of the 5 experts had all agreed, while the other 2 remained silent. Brother Jianchen, if we may have your opinion. Qingji looked toward the yellow-clothed girl and Jianchen, and then the 4 men behind them. With a single glance, he knew that Jianchen and the girl were both the pillars of their group. I see no problems. Jianchen smiled. The girl said nothing, and only nodded her head in agreement. Seeing the strongest 2 of the group give their agreement, Qingji had a look of excitement on his face. Then, with a look around the area, he spoke in a loud voice. Everyone, now that the 5 experts have all united to enter the Immortals' Cave, I hope that everyone will stand with us. Our combined strength will be enough to kill the magical beasts, and whoever enters the cave will be able to take their own treasure. As soon as Qingji finished his speech, everyone stood up at once and began to cheer loudly. Each one of these men were at least at the Great Saint Master level, if not higher. If you are not an Earth Saint Master, then don't throw your life away. We are only inviting Earth Saint Masters to fight with us. Dugafeng yelled out loud, causing those of the Great Saint Masters to be displeased by this. After this, the Great Saint Masters could only retreat away from the campgrounds, leaving behind around 70 men. Each one of them were Earth Saint Masters with a strong background and a determined face. Good, then let's have everyone here, so we can plan things out. I propose that we split up into 4 groups. Each one will deal with a single magical beast. Does anyone have any opinions? Qingji spoke. This plan's fine, I agree. I agree as well. Everyone began to ask their questions. Just who will be in which of the 4 divisions? A person asked. Qingji smiled. When it comes to this, I've already a plan. The inner group here has enough people to split into 2 groups of 10. The rest of the 70 men here should split into 2 groups as well. 2 groups of 35 men. Does anyone have any objections? The inner group Qingji had mentioned were all standing right next to him. Some were the 5 experts, including Jianchen's group. It looked as though the men on the outside had the advantage, but that wasn't it. Those in the inner group were all the strongest individuals, and a few of them could easily fight against 3 other men at their level of strength with ease. Right now we should split our groups then. Qingji looked at Jianchen and the girl with a smile. Jianchen, would it be possible for us to be on the same division? Seeing Qingji take the initiative to be friendly, Jianchen was caught off guard for a moment before recovering himself quickly. If Brother Qingji is with us, then it would be our honor. Little brother, you are so handsome. This elder sister wants to be with you. You wouldn't refuse me, would you? Tianmu Ling walked to Jianchen at a leisurely pace, and a huff of air exhaling out of her mouth. Jianchen laughed with a collected face and calm heart. This one has no objections, but only Brother Qingji can accept. I've no objections either. Sister Tianmu Ling is welcome to join. Qingji spoke with a graceful smile toward her. Ha ha, little sister, you look ill. Could it be you don't want elder sister joining you? Ha ha, little sister, you don't need to worry. Sister here won't snatch this handsome brother away from you. Tianmu Ling spoke with charm toward the yellow-clothed girl. You should speak less crap. The girl fumed as her eyes stared furiously at the girl, as if she could spit fire from them. Ha ha ha, little sister has a huge temper. That can't do, little girl. You have to be gentle. Be considerate and men will love you. Like this, you won't have any men that'll treat you right. Tianmu Ling seemed as if she was never angry, and constantly laughed. The girl's response was particularly violent as she pulled back the bowstring of her cylinder bow, and pointed an arrow at her. If you continue to speak like this, don't blame me then. Ah! Tianmu Ling shrieked, as she hid behind Jianchen for protection. With a fearful face she said, Little sister, your older sister was only just joking. Please don't be so impulsive, otherwise, little brother's life here might be threatened. With a helpless sigh, Jianchen spoke. Tianmu Ling, it's best if you stop teasing her. She has a bad temper. Ha ha ha, little brother's words here are all too correct. Little sister's temper is quite bad. Tian Muling laughed sillily, but stopped teasing her. The people around them looked on as if they were watching a performance with a small smile on their faces, but no one said anything. Afterward, the 4 divisions were quickly split up. Jian Chen, the yellow-clothed girl, Tian Muling, and Qin Ji were all in one division along with the 2 expressionless men with Tian Muling. Qin Ji's 3 middle-aged companions, Xing Yuan, Yun Zheng, Qin Zhu and Qin Xiao. The 2nd division was composed of Jie Wukong, Du Gufeng and several men. Only Shi Xiangran was left alone in that group, without any companions. While these 2 groups weren't numerous in men, they still had 3 ruler armament users per division, and extremely strong men. The 70 Earth Saint Masters were split into 2 divisions of 30, but since each person in both divisions had no experience working with each other, these 2 groups were the weakest of the 4. Everyone should rest up for today, so that we will be at the peak of our power. Tomorrow we will set out. With that, everyone began to set up their tents. There was enough room for everyone to set up a tent, because of the battle that cleared out a kilometer of land, becoming a flat clearing. As for the great Saint Masters who were denied an invitation to fight, not a single one of them left. Together, they garrisoned themselves farther away in hopes that they could take advantage of the chaos and slip in. Within their own tents, Jian Chen addressed Xing Yuan, Yun Zheng, Qin Zhu and Qin Xiao. Whether or not you wish to follow me or leave, just tell me. However, while the magical beasts are extremely strong, they are not the biggest threat. The biggest threat to us are those fighting with us. On the outside everyone is fighting for the same purpose to kill those magical beasts. But the moment we enter the Immortals' Cave, our alliance will undoubtedly crumble and fall into a chaotic battle. Jian Chen, I've known this already, but my strength is far too weak to help you. Even if I were to go and fight, I wouldn't be able to handle the aftermath from all of the explosions created from the battle. So I'll wait outside for you all. Qin Xiao spoke with no hesitation and spoke of his plan. Qin Zhao's withdrawal was something that Jian Chen had expected. Even if Qin Xiao were to enter, Jian Chen wouldn't be able to protect him. What about you 3? Jian Chen asked the other 3. I'll stay behind. Qin Zhu spoke out loud. Xing Yuan and Yun Zheng both gave each other a look before hesitating. Xing Yuan then spoke up. Brother Jian Chen, I'll enter with you. Although our strength isn't on par with yours, our strength is still quite decent. Then I'll follow you in. Yun Zheng said. Chapter 315. Entering the Immortals' Cave, 1. On the 2nd day, everyone cleaned up their tents and formed a dense group within the forest. Shi Xiangran was afraid of Jian Chen's initial strike that he had delivered, causing him to keep up his barrier without the slightest intention of dropping it. Standing on the road, Qin Ji spoke to the others. There are only 4 magical beasts guarding the Immortals' Cave. The names of each of these strong magical beasts is the Flying Spirit Snake, Amethyst Thunder Lion, Albino Earthworm, and the Pangolin Emperor. After these several days of fighting them, we've already established that their strength is the same as each other. The only difference is their innate skills. The Flying Spirit Snake is capable of flight and spits out an extremely potent poison. If it flies, then it will be extremely hard to deal with. The Amethyst Thunder Lion has a protective layer of amethyst scales that have an extremely high defense. It can also spit out lightning, as well as discharge electricity from its body. It would be the best for everyone to stay away from it. The albino earthworm is a special variation of an earthworm. It has an equally strong defense to the Amethyst Thunder Lion, but its only weakness is that it is slow. For anyone within Wind Attribute Saint Force, they will find the albino earthworm easier to manage than the other 3. The last one is the Pangolin Emperor and the biggest headache. Its attack strength isn't as strong as the other 3, but the most annoying trait about it is that it is especially fast. In a single moment, it can drill deep into the earth to evade our attacks, and then strike out from underneath. It is completely silent when it is in the earth, and leaves behind no trace. It can attack from underneath one's foot at any time, and while it is the weakest in terms of attacks, its attacks are generally unblockable. At the mention of the Pangolin Emperor, Qingji's eyes narrowed angrily. Clearly, he had eaten up a heavy loss from it already. Qingji, which magical beast do you think we should take on? Jianchen asked from the side. Does it need to be said? Of course we want the flying spirit snake. We have 3 ruler armaments, and one of them is a longbow model. If the flying spirit snake were to take to the skies, then we could shoot it down. We also have a whip that can tether and restrict the snake's mobility. At the very least, we could prevent it from taking to the skies. The 2 weapons are the bane of the flying spirit snake. Qingji spoke with no hesitation. Jianchen thought for a moment before nodding his head in agreement. Yes. Then the flying spirit snake poses less of a threat to use than the other magical beasts. Let's take it. Hearing Qingji speak, the seated Dugofeng spoke up. The albino's earthworm has extremely strong defenses, and has a lot of strength as well. The average Earth Saint Master wouldn't be able to do any damage to it. And without a ruler armament, its defenses cannot be pierced. My division will take this one. The Amethyst Thunder Lion and Pangolin Emperor will be handled by the other 2 divisions. In a flash, the discussion was over. The most annoying magical beast, the Pangolin Emperor, who had an unavoidable and unblockable attack, and the strongest magical beast, the Amethyst Thunder Lion, were given to the last 2 divisions. Although the men in those 2 divisions were displeased, they weren't able to say anything. The flying spirit snake was capable of flight, which would render all those on the ground helpless. It would also be able to strike at the men on the ground with its poison. So this magical beast was best suited for the group with the longbow and whip user. As for the albino earthworm, many men were of the same mind of as well, as were all magical beasts that held the character for dragon in their name. The defenses of the albino earthworm were as strong as Dugofeng had said. The average Earth Saint Master would be incapable of doing harm to its body. And since it also had an extremely high defense, it was only fair that 3 ruler armaments were needed to harm and kill it. Although the Pangolin Emperor and Amethyst Thunder Lion were both hard to deal with, the remaining 2 divisions were strong in their own right, and had many people. With at least 30 Earth Saint Masters against a single magical beast, the problem shouldn't be that big. After walking for 10 kilometers, everyone came to a stop as they spotted the remains of a battleground. Suddenly, the loud roar of a magical beast could be heard as it shook both the heavens and the earth with an ear-splitting sound. Then 3 enormous magical beasts came into view. One massive python of large width with a head bigger than the height of a fully matured man and black wings. This was the flying spirit snake. Right next to the flying spirit snake was a large lion. Its head was incredibly ferocious looking and had amethyst-colored scales layered all over its body. Occasionally, a ripple of electricity would dance across its body. This was the Amethyst Thunder Lion. To the side of Amethyst Thunder Lion was a gecko-like magical beast that was 1 meter tall and 10 meters long. 4 stumpy legs held it up from the ground, and its body was completely covered by brown-colored scales. As these 3 magical beasts appeared, a strong presence could suddenly be felt, pressing against everyone's chest as if there were a heavy stone there, making it difficult to move. Together now, the Pangolin Emperor might still be underground, so be careful, Dugofeng said as he held up his flame sword and charged toward the albino earthworm. Following straight behind, Shi Xiangran and Jetta Wukong, and their group charged with their weapons out. At that moment, aside from the Pangolin Emperor, the other 3 magical beasts began to take action. Whoosh! With a flash of golden light, the yellow-clothed girl shot an arrow from her cylinder, bow toward the flying spirit snake. Bang! The arrow collided against the flying spirit snake with an explosive sound. The snake's entire body began to spasm for a moment before settling once more. On its giant body, a single bloody hole could be seen. With an enormous hissing sound that stung the ears, the snake flew toward the yellow-clothed girl. Qingji raised his machete and roared, "Use the whip to bind its body!" Tianmuling flew forward with a serious expression. In an instant, the whip in her hands blurred as it flew toward the snake's body. While in midair, the whip began to extend before becoming a 100-meter-long cord that wrapped around the 2 wings and bound it shut, preventing it from flying. Forward! Qingji roared. With his ruler armament in the air, he and 3 other men flew at the flying spirit snake. At the same time, Jianchen's body blurred away as he flew at the flying spirit snake, as well with his light wind sword. Senior and Yinzheng both followed close behind Jianchen. Bang! An explosive sound and a billow of energy pulsed out like an ocean of energy. The surrounding area quickly went to ruins, as the 3 other divisions began to fight as well. Chapter 316. Entering the Immortals' Cave 2? As the battle continued on for some time, a cry filled with pain could be heard on the battlefield as a middle-aged man was bitten from the waist down by a creature whose head looked like a mouse, dragging him down beneath the ground. That's the Pangolin Emperor. The Pangolin Emperor is here. Everyone be careful of the ground. As soon as everyone heard the yell, they all stared intently at the ground. At that moment, right in front of the group, a large golden-colored rat-like beast flew up from the ground with the upper half of a man in its mouth. Be careful, the Pangolin Emperor is here. Hurry up and attack it. Don't let it escape into the ground. As soon as the Pangolin Emperor appeared, everyone began to shout out loud as they charged at the Pangolin Emperor. The Pangolin Emperor was extremely fast, and immediately flew back into the ground after swallowing the body in its mouth. Even when 3 saint weapons slashed at its body, only sparks could be seen. The Pangolin Emperor was a scaled magical beast with golden scales all over its body. Despite its defenses not being as strong as the albino earthworm, it was still stronger than what the average Earth Saint Master could damage. An incredibly sharp spike arose from the ground and instantly speared through the hip of a man before he could even react. The man cried out in a shrill voice before thrusting his fire attribute saint weapon into the ground in hopes of exposing the Pangolin Emperor from its subterranean hiding spot. All that he hit was earth as the Pangolin Emperor had already moved on from the area. An intense purple light flashed as the entire world shook all of a sudden. By the side, the amethyst thunder lion shot out a blue spear of lightning that arced toward the closest person, burning his body black, which caused him to fall to the ground. Several men struck out at the lion immediately with their saint weapons, creating a clanking sound as they smashed against its scales with some sparks and blood. Although the amethyst thunder lion's defenses weren't all too weak, it wasn't capable of defending against a barrage of blows without taking some damage. An angry roar was emitted from the lion's mouth as it swiped its sharp claws at the surrounding people attacking it. Another arc of lightning was spat out from the lion's mouth and struck the closest person without giving him a chance to dodge. In that instant, 10 of the 30 Earth Saint Masters that had attacked the Amethyst Thunder Lion had been shocked by the lightning and fell to the floor with charcoal black bodies. Another 3 men were torn apart by the lion's claws, dying instantly and injuring several others. The power of an Amethyst Thunder Lion was incredibly strong, and so those fighting against the lion would suffer the most casualties. On the other side, the groups fighting the flying spirit snake and the albino earthworm were having an easy time. The 2 divisions both had 3 ruler armament user and were strong in their own right, making it hard for their group to suffer any casualties. Qin Ji brought up his ruler armament and swung it down onto the albino earthworm, easily cutting past the scales on its body and bringing a decent amount of damage to it. In a short moment, the entire body of the albino earthworm was dyed bright red with its blood. The flying spirit snake wasn't much stronger than the albino earthworm, especially with its wings restricted by Tianmu Ling's whip. Although she wasn't displaying the full might of her ruler armament, it was still enough to contend against the flying spirit snake. In the end, the snake's strength while bound up was far less than before, which impacted it majorly, so only around 60% of its full power could be displayed. Qin Ji's ruler armament struck against the body of the flying spirit snake and left behind a deep 1-meter-long gash, causing it to cry out. The yellow-clothed girl stood far away and shot arrow after arrow from her longbow. Each golden arrow flew toward the head of snake. With a violent hissing sound, the snake began to sway its head side to side as blood dripped down. Jian Chun and the other men began to fly at the snake with their saint weapons ready to attack. On its head, each person swung down to deliver a heavy stroke. Despite each magical beast being quite strong, the humans attacking them at the same time was far too much. Each man was an Earth Saint Master at the least, and taking a hit from them was taxing on their strength. As for the flying spirit snake and the albino earthworm, taking on 3 ruler armaments, each brought about even more damage than what the amethyst thunder lion had caused. As of right now, only the pangolin emperor had an advantage over the other side, and was in good condition. The flying spirit snake continued to struggle fiercely against the bindings, but to no avail. The wounds on its body was growing more and more severe, and its temper even more violent as it continued to be injured. Tian Wuling's face grew serious, as she bit her lower lip and concentrated while sweat pooled over her forehead. At the moment, she was completely focused on constraining the wings of the flying spirit snake. Suddenly, the flying spirit snake let out a loud hiss, as a large amount of corrosive acid shot from its mouth headed in every direction. The very moment the poison landed on a person, the clothes and flesh of the area it landed on immediately melted away. The poison is too corrosive. It can penetrate through Saint force, and in 2 hours it can kill even an Earth Saint Master. Retreat! Qinji commanded as the 3 men, and Senyorin quickly retreated back with him to escape from the poison. The cloud that was wafting up from the poison was already causing visibility to be almost non-existent, causing anyone on the outside to be unable to see what was happening within the area. Enveloped in a transparent barrier, Qinji disregarded all attempts at defense, and leaped high into the air, before coming down onto the snake, piercing it in its heart. The region near the heart of the flying spirit snake immediately ripped in a 1-meter gash, as Qinji flew into the next strike, and split apart the wound even further with his weapon once more. The flying spirit snake let out an ear-piercing hiss, as it violently swung its body upright. In the next second, the tail of the snake smashed into Qinji's barrier. Although Qinji wasn't injured, the impact was enough to send him flying far away. As he flew through the air, Qinji's eyes widened suddenly. In an earth-shattering moment, he could see the blurry glows of an azure and violet ray of light through the poisonous mist. Aowo! In the next second, a desperate wail from the flying spirit snake could be heard. Within the poisonous mist, no one was capable of seeing what was happening, but they knew that something had obviously struck the ground heavily and shook it. The flying spirit snake continued to hiss in pain as its voice grew warped. The poisonous mist in the area began to swirl around madly, as if something was shaping it into a random shape. The blood-soaked Jian Chen quickly flew out from the poisonous mist with the majority of his clothes melting away from the poison, and some of the green poison still stuck to his body. Only the yellow-clothed girl was standing in front of him, and since there was a layer of poisonous mist covering his body, no one else was able to see Jian Chen. Jian Chen immediately took out a new set of clothes, and quickly cleaned off the rest of the snake's poison, before putting on the new set. Just like he was still in yesterday's clothes, Jian Chen flew around the poisonous mist with a smile to regroup with the rest. At that moment, the previously spasming flying spirit snake finally stilled as the poisonous mist dispersed as well, allowing everyone to see what happened within. The moment everyone could see, their faces went still with shock and amazement. Even Qinji was no different from the rest. The entire body of the flying spirit snake was on the ground, but the area where its heart was had been completely bisected away from the rest of its body. Blood splurted out from the wound in large amounts from its head-sized heart, which was also cut into 2 pieces. The flying spirit snake lay on the ground still alive, but it was not too far away from death, and the monster core had already disappeared from its body without a trace. Qinji couldn't help but think back to when he saw the blurry azure and violet glow. He had felt a great change overcome Jian Chen, but he didn't say anything as he felt doubt and confusion cloud his heart. Just then, the albino earthworm let out a terrible sound, as well before collapsing to the ground, with Shi Xiangran's seal of Treasure Mountain smashed on top of its head. Even its entire body had been smashed several times with the seal, to make for a serious injury. Both the flying spirit snake and the albino earthworm were dead now. Only 2 remained. One was the amethyst thunder lion, which was prancing about. Despite the wounds on its body, It was nowhere near anything life-threatening. Its strength was far superior to those in its grade, because of its innate skill and rarity. Even an Earth Saint Master could only hope to do a sliver of damage to it. The Pangolin Emperor was the most healthy one. Scuttling about underground, it would play hide and seek with those on top, as if it were a game rather than a battle. Appearing and disappearing randomly before attacking people in a single instance, it left behind no traces, and only a major headache. The divisions fighting both the Amethyst Thunder Lion and the Pangolin Emperor had taken major casualties. At least a dozen men died fighting the lion, while many more had taken serious damage as the Tenacious continued to struggle with it. As for the Pangolin Emperor, it had already swallowed 7 men, while injuring a dozen others. The Pangolin Emperor hadn't even taken any damage yet. The Amethyst Thunder Lion is far too strong. Come and help us quickly, or we won't last much longer. Help us deal with the Pangolin Emperor. Seeing how the Flying Spirit Snake and the albino earthworm were killed, the others cried out for assistance with glee. Quickly extracting the monster core from the albino earthworm, Dugufeng led his men into the forest, without regard for the 2 divisions still fighting the magical beasts. Ignore them, let's go. Don't be left behind. The Immortal's Cave is right in front of us. Qin Ji shouted to Jianchen and the rest of the division, as he brought 3 men with him to chase after Dugufeng. He did not care for the corpse of the Class 5 Flying Spirit Snake. Without looking at the Flying Spirit Snake's corpse, Jianchen called out to the rest of the men to follow them into the forest. After making a mad dash, Jianchen followed Qin Ji into a cave. This cave was unnaturally deep, and with every single interval, there was a single night pearl emanating a white glow of light. The interior and cave walls were glossy as well, meaning that someone had used an incredible amount of strength to cut the walls evenly. Bang! A loud sound could be heard up ahead, as the entire passageway began to tremble. Jian Chun, the yellow-clothed girl, Tian Muling, Yun Zheng and Seniorin began to hasten their pace, even more before quickly arriving at an area where everyone was gathered. Upon seeing Jian Chen enter the room, Shi Xiangran immediately activated his barrier to secure his safety. Right in front of everyone, a single stone door blocked their paths. Bastard, just who touched the mechanism here? It dropped a stone wall blocking our way in. Jieta Wukong roared in anger as he held his ruler armament. Chapter 317. Fighting over a heaven-tier battle skill. It doesn't matter what doors are blocking our way. I'll smash them apart. Dugufeng strode forward and immediately struck the door fiercely with his fist. With a muffled sound, the stone door continued to tower over everyone else with only some dust being shaken down. At this sight, everyone was astounded. Even Dugufeng had been stunned for a moment before muttering to himself, "Is this really a stone door?" Dugufeng knew clearly just how much strength was put behind his fist. Even an iron door would have a hole blasted through it, but this stone door wasn't even scratched. Heavens, is this really a stone door? It's unbelievably hard. This stone door was made from a stone-like material, but it's so durable. This stone door definitely isn't an ordinary one. Everyone began to chat among themselves. It doesn't matter what it's made from, but if it dares block our path, then it will be destroyed. Dugufeng spoke coldly. His right arm held the fire sword as he prepared to swing his ruler armament. Upon seeing that Dugufeng was about to use his ruler armament, everyone stepped back in fear of being caught in the aftermath. The ruler armament in Dugufeng's hand began to release a great flame as he yelled. With a large swing, he smashed the sword against the stone door heavily. Bang! An ear-splitting sound could be heard as the entire cave shook from the blow. Everyone shook their heads in pain as they steadied themselves. After a while, the cave grew quiet once more. Everyone's eyes remained wide open as they looked at the stone door in shock. It continued to stand over them as if normal. Just what was used to make this stone door? It's really hard. Tian Muling stammered as she covered her mouth with her hand in shock. Even Dugufeng found it hard to remain calm and was stunned. For such an ordinary-looking stone door to be able to take a blow from a ruler armament without any damage, it was far too much to believe. The richly dressed Qin Ji walked to the stone door and raised his hand to touch it with a calm expression. Breaking open this door will allow us entry into the Immortal's cave. Let us have all of those with a ruler armament strike at it at the same time. I doubt this door will be able to withstand the might of 6 ruler armaments. That's right, this is the best course of action. Jetta Wukong spoke. Okay then, big brothers. If big brothers can do the heavy work, this little girl will help out from the side. Whether or not this stone door breaks is all on you. The girl spoke with charm as she smiled at everyone. Then stepping toward Jianchen, she looked at him with a loving smile. Brother Jianchen, do you want to give it a try? Jianchen shook his head with a bitter smile. This one has no ruler armament, so my attack would be tremendously weak. The area isn't that wide either, so it wouldn't be able to hold that many people standing side by side. I would rather not hinder everyone else. As soon as Jianchen spoke, a large animalistic roar could be heard, causing everyone in the cave to pale. That's the amethyst thunder lion, and the sounds of footsteps. God damn it, they dared to come running here. They're bringing the lion over. Everyone, let's act quick. Qingji yelled. Without any hesitation, De Gufeng, Jetta Wukong, Shi Xiangran, Qingji and Tian Muling all stood in front of the stone door. With their ruler armaments out, they each prepared to strike. Then suddenly, a transparent barrier suddenly appeared and covered the people inside. This caused Jianchen to be shocked. He hadn't thought that these people with ruler armaments would have a barrier from a saint ruler around them. Abruptly turning around to look at the yellow-clothed girl, he could see her standing 10 meters away with her bowstring pulled back completely. The only difference was that there was no barrier protecting her. But Jianchen didn't know whether or not she didn't have a saint ruler helping her, or she just wasn't using it. At that moment, aside from the 6 ruler armament users, everyone drew back quickly. The energy feedback from 6 ruler armaments was enough to cause harm to any Earth Saint Master. Attack! With one command, all 6 ruler armament users struck out. An arrow flew ahead of the other attacks, and collided into the stone door, along with the fist-sized seal of Treasure Mountain, while the others smashed against the door in coordination. Bang! A loud sound could be heard as a large shockwave of energy exploded outward at an alarming speed, washing over everyone while the cave itself began to shake almost as if it was on the verge of collapsing in on itself. Jianchen and the other Earth Saint Masters stuck close to the walls of the cave as a way to keep themselves rooted to the ground. At the same time, they used their saint force to enforce their bodies as a secondary form of defense. Half a breath later, the shockwave receded to a calm as the 6 ruler armament users each were dragged back 10 meters. The barriers had protected them from any harm, while only the yellow-clothed girl was quite pale in the face. Upon looking at the stone door, there were several cracks, but it was still not broken. Everyone let out a shocked gasp. The stone door was far stronger than what anyone had imagined. They didn't think that even 6 ruler armaments wouldn't be enough for them to shatter a stone door. What everyone could rejoice about was the durability of the Immortal's cave. Even after such a heavy blow, it still had not collapsed. Again! Jetta Wukong yelled out. Immediately, the 6 people struck out once more for another terrifying unified attack that was stronger than the one before. Another explosive sound could be heard as stone pieces could be seen flying about, and the cave echoed with the sound. After the second strike, the unbelievably strong stone door had finally been shattered. Even after the stone doors shattered, De Gufeng, Jetta Wukong, Shi Xiangran, Qingji, and Tian Muling didn't care for the aftermath of the explosion, and all charged past the gates. Each one of them were protected by their barriers, and weren't worried about being damaged by anything. Sensing their movements, Jianchen's eyes flashed in recognition. Immediately charging straight toward the doorway, against the energy wave, Jianchen twisted and turned in a struggle to get past. Finally, he was able to break free of the energy wave and follow the 5 through the opening. Beyond the stone gates was an empty space where none of the energy from the earlier strike could reach. Placed right on top of a high platform was a dark-colored wooden box. On the outside, it looked quite ordinary and didn't seem to be anything special. Seeing this box, De Gufeng, Shi Xiangran, Jetta Wukong, and Qingji all flew toward it without a moment of hesitation. A cyan-colored whip blew past them, and in an instant, it had reached the platform and wrapped around the box before pulling it back. The four men instantly came to a compromise with each other and struck out at the box. Bang! As the box was smashed apart, a white leather book was sent flying into the air. As a result of the blast from the attack, the book continued to flap in the air as the pages. Four hands simultaneously flew out to grab at the falling book in hopes of snatching it away from everyone else. Tianmu Ling didn't move a foot, and immediately snapped her wrist, causing a part of the whip to fly at the four men. At the same time, the head of the whip flew at the book at this moment. The four men acted as one and smashed down on the whip with their ruler armaments. Although the whip was also a ruler armament, it wasn't able to withstand the might of four ruler armaments, and was forced back down. The four men instantly arrived at the book, and lashed out to grab it. Each hand latched onto a part of it, and with a violent pull, each one tried to pull the book toward themselves. Chi! The string binding on the book instantly tore, causing several pages of the book to fly through the air. Combined with the energy from the earlier blow on the whip, the book pages all fluttered about through the air. Four pairs of hands zipped through the air as they collected the scattered pages. At this moment, Jianchen suddenly appeared in a silver ray of light. Spotting two of the loose pages, he grabbed at them with lightning speed before grabbing onto another one nearby. Dugafeng swiftly grabbed onto another two pages, as well before spotting another right next to his hand. As he lifted his hand to grab at it, suddenly, a person appeared in his line of sight. This person was Jian Shun, who immediately grabbed at the piece of paper right underneath his eyes. Dugafeng was immediately stunned before instantly growing angry, as his eyes gleamed with a murderous light. After the small struggle for the pages, the book was quickly divided up by the 6 people. In the end, Tianmu Ling had 2 pages, Jianchen had 4, Dugafeng had 4, Jetta Wukong had 3, Shi Xiangran had 2, and Qingji had 4 for a total of 19 pages. At this moment, Shi Xiangran had already flew at Jianchen with his barrier present, while his seal of Treasure Mountain flew at Jianchen's head. To dare kill my men, I'll definitely kill you today. No one has dared steal from me before. At that moment, Jetta Wukong and Dugafeng flew at Jianchen with their ruler armaments out, and ready to kill him. Qingji and Tianmu Ling had no plans on helping out either side, although they had fought alongside Jianchen. But their relationship with him wasn't anything special. Shi Xiangran was a hated enemy of Jianchen. Jetta Wukong had his comrade Jigu die by Jianchen's hand, and Dugafeng had a part of the battle skill taken away from right under his nose. Each person had a reason for fighting Jianchen. Chapter 318. Killing 3 experts. Shi Xiangran, Jetta Wukong and Dugafeng all struck out at the same time toward Jianchen, much to his shock. The thing that made Jianchen extremely serious was that all 3 of them had barriers, and so it would be incredibly hard for him to injure them. Furthermore, the 3 of them had a ruler armament each. If he was hit by one, then it would do an incredible amount of damage that he wouldn't be able to endure and could even die from. Even if he were to be injured, Shi Xiangran and the other 2 would never let him go, or even let him out of the cave. Jianchen's eyes gained a berserk gleam to it. Right now, he could only use his final trump card to go all out. An azure and violet glow could be seen on Jianchen's light wind sword as he walked toward Shi Xiangran without fear, and stabbed his sword straight at the barrier protecting him. Right now, Jianchen could only place all his hopes on the azure and violet sword Qi. Success or failure, it was all reliant on the sword Qi, since it was the strongest attack he could use. Seeing Jianchen take the initiative to charge, Shi Xiangran revealed a happy smile on his face. With the defensive power of his barrier, that even a ruler armament couldn't break, meant that Jianchen wouldn't be able to either. Jianchen's attack wasn't something that Shi Xiangran even cared about, so the pieces of paper within Jianchen's hand were something that he felt were as good as his. Grabbing onto the seal of Treasure Mountain tightly, Shi Xiangran waited until he grew closer, and immediately treated it like a stone as he used it to smash into Jianchen's head. As the light wind sword made contact with Shi Xiangran's barrier, under the expecting eyes of Jianchen, the barrier began to melt away without a sound, allowing the sword entrance. At this, Jianchen revealed a look of joy. Without another moment of hesitation, the light wind sword immediately reached further inside and stabbed into Shi Xiangran's throat. Shi Xiangran instantly went rigid as his movements came to a grinding halt. Staring down at the spot where the sword had pierced through his barrier and into his throat, he then looked back at Jianchen with a look of utter disbelief. Even the seal of Treasure Mountain that had left his hand to strike at Jianchen stopped in mid-air as well. And no, that CA can't be. Shi Xiangran spoke in shock as he spat out some blood and stammered. His eyes slowly opened wide in disbelief. Du Gufeng and Jie Wukong, who were initially running at Jianchen, immediately stopped. They watched the barrier of Shi Xiangran get pierced by Jianchen's silver blade before it stabbed Shi Xiangran in the throat. They both understood the durability of the barrier and how even a ruler armament was useless. Even a Heaven Saint Master would need to use all of their strength in order to break apart the barrier. But right in front of their eyes, the barrier that had been protecting Shi Xiangran was penetrated by Jianchen's sword with ease, or with no resistance, almost as if it were tofu. This was something that was completely unimaginable to them both. On the other side, Qin Ji and Tianmu Ling both stared in disbelief as shock filled their hearts. Tianmu Ling's mouth dropped open in shock as she stared at Jianchen and Shi Xiangran, as motionless as a stone statue. At that moment, the yellow-clothed girl had entered the cave, as well just in time to see Jianchen's sword stab into Shi Xiangran's throat. In mute shock, her eyes began to widen as she stared at the sight with disbelief. He broke through Shi Xiangran's barrier? The girl felt her heart surge in shock. At this moment, she didn't know what feeling was stronger, the joy from the death of Shi Xiangran, or the excitement from seeing the sudden revelation of Jianchen's superior battle strength. Jianchen looked at his sword that had broken through Shi Xiangran's barrier with excitement. It was almost as if a heavy burden was released from his heart. After the sword spirits had awoken, they had consistently helped him increase his attacking power. Even as a great Saint Master, he had been able to kill Earth's Saint Masters. And up until now, the sword spirits had never disappointed him. They had even destroyed the barrier, something that a ruler armament couldn't accomplish. With this, even those with a barrier wouldn't be as big of a threat as before. Although a ruler armament was extremely powerful, it was only capable of emitting an extremely strong strike. As long as one made sure the ruler armament didn't make contact or clash with one, then the ruler armament was no different than an ordinary saint weapon. Shi Xiangran's life quickly bled away as he continued to stare at Jianchen with a quivering look. Slowly losing his strength, the barrier began to quickly dissipate before disappearing entirely. With a twist of his wrist, Jianchen's sword cut through Shi Xiangran's throat in a bloody manner before pulling out. At the same time, Jianchen quickly pocketed Shi Xiangran's space ring and the seal of Treasure Mountain for his own before turning toward Jie Wukong to fight with him. From the earlier moments, Jianchen had recognized both Jie Wukong and Du Gufeng as his enemies. For those who were his enemies, Jianchen had no mercy. Even more so, Jianchen desired the Heaven-tier battle skill pages in their hands. Seeing Jianchen come flying over, Jie Wukong's face grew ugly. Back when he was contesting for the pages, he hadn't thought of Jianchen as an opponent at all. But with Jianchen easily breaking through Shi Xiangran's barrier, he couldn't help but feel as if his heart had been dealt a serious blow. Right now, he couldn't afford to naively think that his barrier would protect him from any harm anymore. Jie Wukong leaped back with an explosive amount of force as he brought his flame sword to swing at Jianchen. Jianchen knew better than to go head-on with a ruler armament. He easily dodged the swing, and with an azure and violet glow of his sword, his light wind sword stabbed at the barrier protecting Jie Wukong. Without any obstruction, the barrier quickly dissolved away to reveal a small hole where the sword had touched, allowing Jie Wukong to be stabbed with no problems. Seeing that his own barrier powerless to block even a single strike, a pool of sweat began to appear on Jie Wukong's forehead as he went pale. With a single leap, he flew back and brought his weapon up to guard against the sword stab. Ding! Stabbed against the ruler armament, the azure and violet sword Qi wasn't able to break past it. Since the ruler armaments were far too strong for the currently recovering azure and violet sword chi, they could not be damaged by the glows. At that moment, the ruler armament billowed outward with a great flame that shot at Jianchen like a bullet. Jianchen couldn't help but start slightly as he jumped back with his blood boiling with emotions. Jianchen knew that ruler armaments were the remnants of a saint ruler's saint weapon, so they contained an unbelievable amount of power. Just a single strike of one would be enough for him to find it difficult to endure. Go die! Jiedo Wukong capitalized on Jianchen's backward leap and instantly stabbed toward Jianchen. Disappearing from view, Jianchen dodged Jiedo Wukong's sword nimbly before stabbing at him with his own sword. The entire area began to be consumed with mirror images of Jianchen's sword as he entrapped Jiedo Wukong within. In an instant, Jiedo Wukong was flustered by Jianchen's movements. Immediately bringing his own ruler armament to protect himself, he attempted to find out which sword was the real one before exploiting the large energy within his ruler armament to strike Jianchen's light wind sword. Just as Jiedo Wukong was about to go through the motions of his strike, he immediately came to a stop midway through his dance, only to see that Jianchen had somehow made his way behind him. His light wind sword had inexplicably split his barrier once more and stabbed through his throat from the back. Once more, this caused everyone to stare wide-eyed in amazement. No one could have imagined that Jianchen would be able to kill Shi Xiangran in a single moment, even with his barrier, and then going on to kill Jiedo Wukong in the next moment. Duge Feng's face had already turned unsightly at this. He quickly moved to run toward the entrance of the cave with the speed of a bullet. He knew that he had offended Jianchen already, and wanted to escape from a difficult battle at all costs. With the superior strength that Jianchen had just revealed, he knew he had no chance of winning. Jianchen quickly stored away Jiedo Wukong's ruler armament into his space ring before taking the space ring as well, and chasing after Duge Feng with all the speed he could muster. If Duge Feng were to escape, then Jianchen would lose all chances of being able to learn the heaven-tier battle skill. Sensing that Jianchen was chasing after him, the escaping Duge Feng cried out, "Help me block him!" Immediately, 4 men came up to obstruct Jianchen's path, with an incredible amount of aura leaking out of them. Included among the group was the purple-robed man. Jianchen's eyes flashed with a large killing intent as he slashed at the 4 men with his azure and violet sword chi-enhanced sword. The 4 men didn't know how strong the azure and violet sword chi was, so they brought up their swords to block it. Ding 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 ding. Following the sounds of metal hitting metal, the light wind sword immediately smashed against their swords before each one of them suddenly gained a new finger-sized chip on their blades. With their saint weapons damaged, each one of the 4 men immediately felt the pain and cried out before turning pale. Taking advantage of their pain, Jianchen went after their lives. Jianchen was impatient to chase after Duge Feng, so he acted quickly and full-heartedly. A first cycle Earth Saint Master was easily manageable for him to kill. With a flash of silver, the light wind sword stabbed out 4 times. 3 of the 4 were too slow to dodge and instantly had their throats stabbed. Only the purple-robed man was able to use his saint weapon to block the strike at the last moment, causing his sword to earn another jagged mark. Now that his saint weapon had been struck twice, the middle-aged man began to spit out some blood as he looked at Jianchen in shock. Jianchen's light wind sword struck out in succession as he fully suppressed the man's movements. Against his attacks, the man was unable to do anything but dodge, since he knew that Jianchen was capable of striking and damaging his saint weapon. Even as he dodged, he was still hit by Jianchen's sword several times, and was nearly stabbed straight through by the sword. In the end, he too was killed, which allowed Jianchen to continue chasing after Duge Feng without hesitation. Chapter 319. Return of Ming Dong. All the men crowded in the passageway hurriedly shot out of the way for Jianchen. The struggle for the heaven-tier battle skill had only been a few moments, and no one outside of the cave had any idea what had happened inside. At this moment, they could only watch in confusion as Jianchen chased down Duge Feng. Wasn't everything going fine earlier? How could they suddenly start fighting? And the bigger question was, just when had Jianchen's strength become so amazing? Jianchen chased De Gufeng through the passageway of the cave for some time. Following that, some of the expert's subordinates quickly came to their senses and charged into the cave as well. Within the cave, Shi Xianggran and Jetta Wukong lay motionless on the ground. Their blood continued to leak down onto the ground in one big puddle. Lord Wukong. Suddenly, a grieved voice could be heard as two middle-aged men shot into the cave like arrows to Jetta Wukong's side. Looking at the hole in his throat, the men all instantly turned white before crying out loud in grief. Lord Wukong, Lord Wukong! One man shook Jetta Wukong's body with an impatient shout, as if trying to wake him up. Lord Wukong has already died. The other man sighed with a look of sorrow on his face. Dead? Just how is that possible? Lord Wukong had a barrier protecting him, along with a ruler armament. There isn't anyone here that could possibly kill him. The man spoke in a crazed manner. Jetta Wukong's position in the clan was far beyond what was right. Not only was he the son of the patriarch, but he was also the future leader of the Jetta clan. The two men, and Jigu, came to protect him specifically. With Jetta Wukong dead, it was hard to say that they would live as well. AI. The other man gave a long sigh as he stared blankly. He didn't care for Jetta Wukong's death much, but Jetta Wukong's status in the clan was far too high. Since he was Wukong's bodyguard, he would be punished severely for what had just occurred. The penalty might be so heavy that Jetta Wukong's father might have them both die to serve Jetta Wukong in the afterlife. Who was it? Who was it that killed Lord Wukong? The man spoke with an extremely grim voice. Now that Jetta Wukong was dead, he really did not want to be the only one to take on the responsibility for Jetta Wukong's death. It was possible that after the gathering of the mercenaries, he would be killed. Just now, there was a youth named Jianchen that held some grievances with our lord. He just ran off to chase De Gufeng. Even the 4 strong, well-known guards of the Dugu clan were killed in a short moment by Jianchen. The one who killed Lord Wukong must be Jianchen. His hidden strength must be enormous. The other man spoke with a gloomy expression. Miss Tianmuling, Lord Qinji, if you could tell us, was the person who killed Lord Wukong Jianchen? Tianmuling and Qinji both nodded their heads in a stupefied manner. The fight they had just seen had caused a tremendous amount of shock to their hearts. Jianchen had somehow destroyed the barriers placed on Shi Xianggran and Jetta Wukong, created by a saint ruler, which were known for being incredibly hard to destroy. After finding out who the murderer was, the two men both grew dark. Jianchen was strong, and was not someone they could fight against. The two were not willing to stay here any longer, and carried Jetta Wukong's body out of the cave. Neither of them were stupid. When Jianchen came back to annihilate everyone, it would be in their best interests to run far away with Jetta Wukong's body. They would wait for the end of the gathering of the mercenaries, and report it to the elders in hope that the patriarch would be lenient in his punishment. Running away from the clan was not going to work, and would only speed up their deaths. The cave's right over there, hurry up and get in. Let them deal with the Amethyst Thunder Lion. Hurry up, the cave's right in front of us. Outside the cave, a group of miserable-looking men were all running to it as fast as possible. Right behind them, the small mountain-like Amethyst Thunder Lion continued to shoot lightning from its mouth. Each arc of lightning burnt a person into a crisp, as the Golden Pangolin Emperor continued to strike at the other humans not too far away. Within the group, not only were there the original divisions of Earth Saint Masters, but also at least 100 Great Saint Masters. After the 2 divisions with the ruler armaments had killed 2 of the magical beasts and entered the cave, the Great Saint Masters all decided to risk it and charge forward. In hopes of obtaining the treasure within, each one threw away their lives to charge toward the cave. The influx of these Great Saint Masters had aroused the attentions of the remaining 2 magical beasts. Thus, the already suffering divisions quickly renounced their attempts to kill the magical beasts, and ran for the Immortals' cave at full speed. With no strong individual to control the magical beasts, the situation had naturally gotten worse for the Great Saint Masters. The Earth Saint Masters didn't care, and left the Great Saint Masters to deal with the ire of the magical beasts. Suddenly, a single shadow could be seen flying through the sky with an explosive wind rippling through the air. Despite many people seeing the shadow's image, No one cared for it at this moment. Just as this shadow receded away, another shadow quickly streaked through the air, before chasing after the first one. This was Jianchen chasing after Dugufeng. Jianchen was utilizing most of his speed by catapulting himself off of the trees. With each launch, he flew forward another 10 extra meters, and was slowly reducing the distance between Dugufeng and himself. Sensing that Jianchen was still chasing him, Dugufeng's face grew startled as he thought to himself, could fifth uncle and the other 3 men have been killed by Jianchen? No, there's no way. Fifth uncle was at the 5th cycle Earth Saint Master. There's no way for him to be killed by Jianchen that quickly. There was disbelief as that thought went through his mind. He knew that Jianchen's strength was far higher than what he had thought if he could disregard the barriers on both Shixiangran and Jetta Wukong. He shouldn't be strong enough to kill his 5th uncle and the 3 other 3rd cycle Earth Saint Master bodyguards, even if he were to use a ruler armament. By this point, Dugufeng had already deemed Jianchen to be a terrifying existence that he could not afford to fight. He increased his speed even more, determined to protect his ruler armament. Dugufeng wasn't a man that feared death, but he wanted to prevent the ruler armament from falling into any other man's hands. Thus he could only run away. The ruler armament was something every clan would pay a heavy price for, and would tremendously impact the clan's power and influence. Dugufeng absolutely could not allow his ruler armament to fall into someone else's hands. Otherwise, his clan would be condemned to a lifetime of shame that could not be recovered from. The 2 men's speed slowly increased to the maximum. 10 kilometers had been traveled in a short amount of time. Running past the forest, they reached a clearing. Right now, Jianchen had closed the distance to Dugufeng. By now, there was only a single kilometer separating the 2. Even though Dugufeng wasn't a wind attribute, his running speed was still quite superior to most. So even Jianchen had to exert a lot of energy to chase after him. At this moment, 10 kilometers away from Jianchen, a black-robed youth with hair that reached down to his waist was quickly running toward a forest. This youth looked to be around 27 or 28-year-old, and had a firm look on his face. I've heard that the cave of a previous cultivator was around here, and contains a heaven-tier battle skill. People even say that the 5 experts were all gathered there as well. Bah! I should go take a look myself. Hopefully I'll be able to find him. The black-robed youth muttered to himself. Just then, the black-robed youth saw 2 figures appear a few kilometers away from him, quickly charging over in his direction. Seeing the 2 people, the youth revealed a look of disdain as he muttered, "Another 2 men rushing to their deaths. I hope they're not too weak. I want to test out my strength." With that, the youth examined the 2, but the moment he saw their faces, a look of shock overtook it. "Are my eyes going bad? This is too much of a coincidence." The black-robed youth spoke as he kneaded his eyes gently. With a closer look, he concentrated on the 2 men before smiling widely and charging straight at them. "Friend, hold off the man behind me, and the Dugu clan will reward you handsomely." Dugufeng had already thrown away his face and reputation, for the sake of preserving the ruler armament. While he knew that he was not an opponent for Jianchen, he would much rather fight Jianchen to the death than try to flee. For the sake of the ruler armament, he could not choose this option. Hearing Dugufeng's words, the black-robed youth was stunned for a moment before he smiled meaningfully. With a simple movement, a wind attribute Saint Force could be seen as it covered the youth's body. Like an arrow, he flew toward Dugufeng and Jianchen with a faster speed than before. The black-robed youth's speed was almost inconceivable. In a moment he had traveled several kilometers, causing both Jianchen and Dugufeng to be shocked. The moment Jianchen saw the youth's face, he went still as a surge of emotions swelled up in him. Dugufeng was shocked for a moment before becoming happy. He didn't think that his luck would be good enough to meet such a strong person. With his fast speed, even if he wasn't able to defeat Jianchen, he would at the very least keep him occupied. "Friend, help me hold up the man behind me, and the Dugu clan will reward you." Dugufeng spoke once more with a relaxed voice. The youth revealed a strange smile, but he did not respond to Dugufeng. Bringing out his cyan-colored longsword, he quickly slashed at Dugufeng with an alarming speed. Bringing up his ruler armament to defend himself, Dugufeng quickly protected himself. The youth staggered back a few steps as his feet dragged across the ground. What was more shocking was that the ruler armament-wielding Dugufeng had also been forced back 3 steps by the ordinary-looking sword of the youth. "Friend, what is the meaning of this?" Dugufeng's face grew dark before shock filled his face. The youth's strength was extraordinary, and even after blocking the sword, his inner organs had felt the vibration from the blow. Could this average-looking youth somehow be a heaven saint master? Dugufeng thought to himself in terror. The youth recollected himself before looking at the sword in Dugufeng's hands with some surprise before cursing out loud. Fuck! So it was a ruler armament. With the youth holding up Dugufeng, Jianchen had quickly caught up. Standing 20 meters away from Dugufeng's back, he smiled at the black-robed youth. The youth looked at Jianchen with a happy smile before waving his hands. "Hey Jianchen, I didn't think I'd meet you in such a manner. You seem to be doing quite well if you can bring even a ruler armament user to heel." Jianchen revealed a happy smile on his face. "Ming Dong, it's been almost a year since we last saw each other. I barely recognized you." This one youth was unexpectedly Ming Dong, who had stayed in the Madare Shrine. Nearly a year had passed, but his strength had undergone an earth-shattering transformation. Chapter 320. Blood Oath. After nearly a year, Ming Dong had undergone an extreme transformation. Right now, with Ming Dong standing calmly right there, he was exuding a mountainous aura that seemed almost boundless. From head to toe, the aura he was exuding was what a strong individual would display. It was as if he had experienced many different life and death battles, and had become a hardened soldier. Unconsciously, he was radiating killing intent that was unlike anything else, and made everyone around feel as if their hearts were being pressured by it. Ming Dong, right now, was almost as if he were a completely different person than the one from a year ago. Jianchen couldn't help but feel some doubt. Was this black-robed youth in front of him the Ming Dong he knew? Ming Dong laughed with an excited look on his face. "Jianchen, I was getting worried about where I should go to find you. I didn't think that I'd be able to find you so fast. This must be what the heavens have decreed, or that we were just destined to see each other." Upon hearing the conversation between Jianchen and this black-clothed youth, Dugufeng instantly grew extremely ugly. Before, he had been extremely overjoyed to see the large amount of power of this youth, but he didn't think that the two men would somehow know each other. And from the look of things, the two men were on extremely good terms with each other. Dugufeng was suddenly stuck between a rock and a hard place. Right in front of him was a tiger, and behind him was a wolf. Both of them were extremely fast, especially the newcomer's speed. Dugufeng had already given up on running away since he knew that even if he were to run at full speed, he wouldn't be able to escape from the wind attributed Ming Dong. There was no way for him to run away from the two. Dugufeng's face grew deathly serious. He wasn't afraid of death at all, but the ruler armament was something he couldn't afford to lose. If it were to fall into someone else's hands, then his clan would be humiliated to the highest degree. Without a ruler armament, then his clan's power would plummet. That was because if a sixth cycle Heaven Saint Master were to use a ruler armament, they would be capable of fighting a saint ruler. His fighting ability would only be describable as a being able to shatter the heavens and scorch the earth. Ming Dong, let's catch up later. For now, let's take care of the business in front of us. Jianchen smiled. Ming Dong turned to look at the serious Dugufeng with his own smile. That's fine, Jianchen. This guy has a ruler armament. That means he has a strong background. You should prepare yourself. Shrugging, Jianchen spoke helplessly. There's no other way, although it'll be a headache, but some headaches have to be endured. I've already killed 2 other ruler armament users, so trouble is unavoidable. Another one shouldn't matter too much. Upon hearing Jianchen's words, Ming Dong's eyes widened in amazement. No way, you've killed 2 people with ruler armaments? You're too strong now. Did those 2 ruler armament users have no barriers to protect themselves? Jianchen laughed. Ming Dong, I didn't think you would know about ruler armaments or even about the barriers. It seems that you've learned a lot in 1 year. Of course, Uncle Tian has treated me nicely and spent a lot of energy to try and bring up my strength from the great Saint Master to where I am now in the span of half a year. He also taught me many things. Ming Dong pointed at Dugufeng. Jianchen, this person's strength is quite decent. Could you give him to me to practice? Ever since I left Uncle Tian a few days ago, I haven't been able to test out my strength properly. Ming Dong's words left Dugufeng speechless. He could have sworn that he heard the one called Ming Dong say that within half a year, he went from the great Saint Master level to a level where he could contend against a ruler armament user without injuries, and even knock them back. Dugufeng had found this hard to believe. Anyone in the Earth Saint Master level would not be able to rely on their own strength, and yet still be able to injure a ruler armament person. But this black-robed youth was the very first. That's fine then, Ming Dong, I'll leave this to you. Let me see just how much you've improved in the span of a year. Jianchen leaped back and gave the space to Ming Dong. He approved of the speed in which Ming Dong had improved, and was not worried that Dugufeng would be able to run away from Ming Dong. Wait one moment. Dugufeng cried out in a hurried manner. Turning to look at Jianchen, he asked. We had some misunderstandings before, but that is only a minor problem, and not worth chasing me down without mercy. Did you want the pages of the Heaven Tier battle skill, or my ruler armament? What do you think? Jianchen joked as he looked at him with a smile. If you want the pages, then I'll give it to you as well as everything else in my space belt. But if you try to take the ruler armament, then I can tell you right now, it will bring you an endless amount of trouble. A ruler armament is something extremely important to my clan, and no one in the clan would allow an outsider to take possession of it. Even if you kill me and take the ruler armament, then our clan will definitely do whatever it takes to chase you throughout the continent and kill you. Even the ancestor of our clan will personally come after you. Dugufeng warned. Jianchen's expression didn't change as he spoke casually. I've already killed 2 men who had barriers and ruler armaments. Do you think I'm afraid of that? Dugufeng went white as he mentally made that realization. He was afraid that Jianchen had an equally strong clan supporting him, and was even stronger than the Duga clan. If that clan was too strong, then he was afraid that if the ruler armament was taken from his clan, they wouldn't be able to steal it back from that clan. Even if they tried to steal it back, they would still be mocked by everyone else, and the entire clan would be humiliated. Suddenly, Dugufeng made up his mind. Smashing against the part where his heart was with his fist, Dugufeng spat out some blood onto his fingers and began to paint in midair. His fingers gently moved through the air as he began to draw a strange type of image. With each stroke, a blood-colored trace could be seen still before it all finally became a bloody pattern. Jianchen looked at Dugufeng with confusion at what he was doing. Whatever this strange thing was, this was the very first time he had heard or seen such a thing. Ming Dong walked over from Dugufeng's back and watched in amazement at the bloody pattern and a look of utter disbelief. Jianchen, I Dugufeng, make a blood oath to you today. If you allow me to return the ruler armament to my clan, I, Dugufeng, will see you as my king. Wherever you go, I will follow, whatever order you command, I will strive to accomplish to my dying breath. Dugufeng stared at Jianchen unwaveringly, as he spoke with determination and some reluctance. For the sake of protecting the ruler armament, he was willing to follow Jianchen for his entire life, for the sake of his family that he loved. He did not wish to see his family become condemned by everyone, and so, he was willing to give up his own life. Jianchen was speechless as he looked at Dugufeng with a surprised expression. Although he didn't know what a blood oath was, whatever Dugufeng had said truly surprised him. Ming Dong's eyes slowly looked at the strange blood pattern left by Dugufeng as he spoke. A blood oath. I've heard that from ancient times, until now this is a binding promise, that is written using one's heart blood as a way for the soul to take form in the oath. It is said that the person who holds the oath also controls the life of the person who made the pledge. With just a single thought, the person who made the oath will have their body and soul extinguished. What's even scarier is that if the person who holds the oath dies, then the one that made the oath will share the same fate. I didn't think that you would know the blood oath from ancient times. Upon hearing Ming Dong's explanation, Jianchen finally had some understanding of what a blood oath was. He didn't think that this world would have such a bizarre thing. Truly, this strange world was filled with magical things. Even at Ming Dong's words, Dugufeng didn't blink and looked at Jianchen. If you allow me to bring the ruler armament back to my clan, then you will be my king, and I will act out your orders no matter what the task is without complaint. If you wish for my ruler armament, then I will be dead either way, without any form of protection. What is your answer? Fine. I'll let you bring back your ruler armament to your clan. Remember your promise. Jianchen spoke instantly. To him, a ruler armament was truly strong, but in the end it was still just a weapon. Dugufeng was a living person with room for growth. Furthermore, no one knew for certain whether or not Dugufeng would become a saint ruler. Dugufeng looked at Jianchen intensely before saying, "As of today, I Dugufeng formally separate myself from the Dugu clan. From now on, whatever I Dugufeng do, it will not be related to the Dugu clan. My life and my death will bear no relations to the clan, and I will only obey you on any command, but those relating to the Dugu clan. I am no longer a part of the clan, and will not be able to use the clan in any way." Jianchen revealed a small smile full of admiration toward Dugufeng as he spoke instantly. "I promise you, you will be you. The Dugu clan will be the Dugu clan. I will definitely not exploit the Dugu clan's power, and will definitely not pit you against them. I won't force the secrets of the Dugu clan from you either. As long as you are willing, then that is enough for me. Fine, from here on out I, Dugufeng, will serve you as my king. As long as you don't try to bring harm to my clan, then please accept my blood oath." Dugufeng spoke with a refreshed tone. Chapter 321. Intact Heaven Tier Battle Skill 1. Jianchen looked at the floating blood pattern that Dugufeng had drawn and spoke. "Dugufeng, you are a true man. I Jianchen admire you. This blood oath is not something I want. I have no desire to control your life, but the things you promised to do I am still waiting on." Hearing this, Dugufeng was stunned. Looking at Jianchen in disbelief, he said, "Do you really trust me? Are you not afraid of me going back on my word?" "That's right. I believe in a person of your character. Of course, if you are a person that goes back on your word, then I can only blame myself for being blind." Jianchen spoke with no hesitation, as if he fully trusted Dugufeng's words. Despite the fact Jianchen could control Dugufeng's life with the blood oath, Jianchen didn't need a person of empty strength. He needed a true comrade, someone with flesh and blood with his own spirit and self-thought. Self-independency was the only way to reveal Dugufeng's true potential. Although accepting the blood oath would allow Jianchen to be able to sleep worry-free without fear of being betrayed, Dugufeng would become nothing more than a soulless person. This would bear no major change on Dugufeng's power, but in the end, Jianchen would never hold Dugufeng's true loyalty. Dugufeng stared at Jianchen in a daze, full of disbelief. At this moment, he was looking at Jianchen in a whole new light, from a stranger to a comrade that he had fought and lived through multiple battles with. Thus emotions began to fill up in his eyes. Dugufeng's fists unconsciously began to tighten as he stared at the handsome and younger Jianchen before speaking. "You needn't worry then. I, Dugufeng, am not a person that goes back on his word. When I return the ruler armament to my clan, then I will immediately come back to fulfill my promise." Jianchen nodded his head with a smile. The matter between him and Dugufeng seemed to have been settled in a way that Jianchen had not expected. He now had Dugufeng's loyalty, so Jianchen was happy. Mingdong's strength had also made leaps and bounds, and with the addition of the equally strong Dugufeng, it could be said that the Flame Mercenaries made another promotion in strength. With this expansion in strength, the amount of power Jianchen was controlling now was on a larger scale. "Dugufeng, you should continue to participate in the gathering of the mercenaries. With your strength, you should be able to make a name for yourself, and make it within the top 10. The rewards are extraordinarily rich. This is not an opportunity that should be missed." Jianchen spoke. Dugufeng nodded his head. "Fine. After the gathering of the mercenaries are over, everything I earn will be given to you. I am no longer from the Dugu clan, so my achievements will be unrelated to them." Jianchen shook his head. That won't be necessary. As long as you make the achievements yourself, then the reward is yours. Dugofeng, I Jianchen, admire you as a true man. In the future, you will be a brother to us all. I hope that everyone can be honest with each other, and that we can work together. Hearing his words, Dugofeng began to feel emotional as his voice began to tremble while he spoke. Fine. I will be your comrade and will not permit anyone to do anything to cause harm to us. Otherwise, anyone that tries will not escape from me. Dugofeng spoke heroically. From this moment, the proud heart of Dugofeng had finally been influenced completely by Jianchen. Haha, I didn't think we'd earn one more friend from this. Dugofeng, I am called Mingdong. You can just call me by that. The previous offenses I may have spoken, please do not take offense to them. I Mingdong truly wish to apologize for this. Mingdong too admired Dugofeng's character and smiled at him with a refreshed look. Dugofeng couldn't help but have a small smile on his face as he clasped a hand on Mingdong's shoulder. Then I'll be calling you Mingdong in the future. Today has been a lucky day for me to be able to come across two outstanding geniuses and become their comrade. You two are even younger than me, but you two are inversely stronger than me, especially you Mingdong. With your own strength, you were able to receive a blow from my ruler armament and even caused me to be sent back. Could you be a Heaven Saint Master? Mingdong laughed loudly. It's not that extreme. I am only at the peak 6th cycle Earth Saint Master level. Although there is only one more step until the Heaven Saint Master realm, this step will still take me another 3 years at the least to cross. What? Your strength has already reached the peak 6th cycle Earth Saint Master level. As soon as Mingdong finished talking, Jianchen spoke in surprise as his eyes widened in disbelief. In less than a year, Mingdong had gone from a great Saint Master to a peak 6th cycle Earth Saint Master. This was a frightening pace that even the words, lightning quick, wouldn't be able to describe. That was because to become an Earth Saint Master, an unbelievable amount of energy was needed to make the breakthrough. The amount of energy, however, to become a 6th cycle Earth Saint Master was immeasurable. Yet, Mingdong had somehow managed to pull off the impossible within the span of a single year. Even Jianchen at the moment was only a 1st cycle Earth Saint Master. Dugofeng regarded Mingdong's strength with astonishment. He didn't think that Mingdong was anywhere past the age of 28. This was younger than he was by 2 years, but the gap in strength between the two was vast. For him to be one step away from the Heaven Saint Master level, this type of achievement made the heaven-sent genius Dugofeng feel eclipsed. Seeing the look on Jianchen's face, Mingdong laughed as he enjoyed the expression. Jianchen, you shouldn't look so surprised. For the sake of improving my strength, Uncle Tian expended a lot of his energy and used an unmeasurable amount of heavenly treasures to improve my strength. Originally, Uncle Tian had planned on raising my strength to the Heaven Saint Master realm. Unfortunately, with my current foundation, if I were to become a Heaven Saint Master, then my foundation would be shattered. For the sake of my future cultivation path, he forced my strength to hover around the peak 6th cycle. Then with his absolute strength, he confined my energy within my body and told me to not try and make the breakthrough for 3 years. Hearing this, Dugofeng felt shock in his heart before asking, Mingdong, your Uncle Tian is quite amazing. He must be a saint ruler at the very least. Mingdong's mouth raised up by a small amount as he smiled. My Uncle Tian is extraordinarily strong. However strong he is, I don't know. But I did hear that 5,000 years ago, Uncle Tian was a saint ruler. What? 5,000 years ago he was a saint ruler? Dugofeng's face lost color as his eyes grew so wide. They were in danger of falling to the ground. He was that shocked. What, Dugofeng, is there something wrong? Mingdong had a crafty smile on his face as he pretended to be confused. And no, there's nothing. Dugofeng spoke out in a rush as his forehead began to collect sweat drops. His face grew white as he spoke. This was the first time since Jianchen came by that he had lost his composure. It seems Dugofeng most likely knows something, otherwise, he would not be shocked to such a degree to hear about a 5,000-year-old saint ruler. Jianchen thought to himself as he observed him. There's still a few of the Heaven Tier battle skill pages I haven't yet collected back in the cave. We should hurry on back. Jianchen spoke. After that, the three men quickly dashed toward the cave as Jianchen began to worry about the few pages left in Qinji and Tianmuling's hands. Thus their speed wasn't slow at all. Not too long after, the three men quickly came near the area of the cave. As the three men approached the area where everyone fought the four magical beasts, a loud roar could be heard from farther away, before the blood-soaked and furious Amethyst Thunder Lion came charging at the three. What a strong force! I finally come across a strong opponent. Let me at him. You two shouldn't take this away from me. Ming Dong stared at the Amethyst Thunder Lion and charged at it with his own saint weapon. Ming Dong, after you're done with the Amethyst Thunder Lion, come meet up with us in the cave. We'll be heading in first. Jianchen spoke to Ming Dong as he charged. Right now Ming Dong's strength was already strong enough to knock back a ruler armament user without harm. He would be able to deal with the heavily injured Amethyst Thunder Lion with ease. Got it, Ming Dong replied. Ah, that's right, there still might be the Pangolin Emperor hidden below ground, be careful of it. Jianchen warned him. Afterward, Jianchen and De Gufeng swiftly arrived nearby the cave, where they saw a large amount of men gathered outside who were cursing loudly. For what reason are you blocking us from entering? This cave isn't yours. That's right, you all are too arrogant. This immortal's cave isn't yours. Just what right do you have to seize it for yourselves? Don't think that just because you have the strength to monopolize the cave that we won't be able to enter. If we all unite, we will be able to make a break into the cave. Hurry up and get out of the way for us. Although our strengths aren't equal to yours, we are not afraid of you. From far away, De Gufeng and Jianchen could hear the sounds of curses, as everyone was blocked entry into the cave. Quickly, Jianchen and De Gufeng landed on the ground. De Gufeng then roared out loud to the crowd. Whoever blocks our path should move aside. His voice was so loud that everyone's eardrums shook. Chapter 322. Intact Heaven Tier Battle Skill 2. As soon as De Gufeng yelled out loud, everyone grew quiet, as they bit back their anger for the ones blocking the cave. Duga's commotion had instantly earned their new ire and immediately, everyone began to curse at him. Fuck, who dares shout so loud? Are they waiting for death? Who's yelling out so fucking loud? Come out. Fucking hell, such arrogance. Hurry up and come out. If you wish to die, allow brother here to show you the road. Suddenly, after the men shouted their curses, they turned around to look at the flame sword-wielding De Gufeng and the white-robed Jianchen. Immediately, all the cursing stopped as their faces registered shock, while the few that cursed at them immediately paled. In a split moment, the entire place went quiet. Right in front of them was De Gufeng of the 5 experts, and an incredibly strong individual, Jianchen. Not a single person there dared to even breathe loudly. Whoever was just cursing at us, step on out immediately. De Gufeng barked out loud with a serious expression. Not a single person made a sound, and not a single person moved. Everyone stood there silently, as those who cursed at them felt their hearts beat crazily. At the same time, everyone began to make way for the two. De Gufeng looked at everyone slowly, evidently not willing to let those bastards who cursed at them go. It's fine, there's no need to bother about something like this. Our first priority are those pages. Jianchen spoke to De Gufeng before quickly running past the crowd and toward the cave's interior. De Gufeng sneered at everyone, but followed Jianchen straight away without another word. Right in front of the cave stood several men, which included Senior and Yunzhang. In total, there were 8 men guarding the place that were pushing back several hundred men. 4 of the other men were from Qinji's group, while the last 2 were from Tianmuling. Jianchen, you're finally back. Hurry up and enter, or else the items will all be taken by them. Seniorin wailed in an impatient manner. Seniorin, who told you two to guard this place? Jianchen spoke in bafflement toward Yunzhang and Senior, and it was all because of that girl named Tianmuling. Thanks to her coaxing, she had Yunzhang, and I brought over here to stand guard, leaving the 3 of them inside still. Senior An's face revealed a sour expression, showing that he was evidently not there by free will. Jianchen slapped Senior An's shoulder with a stern face. You two keep guard here. Be assured, as long as there is a prophet, Jianchen won't forget about you too. That's fine, Jianchen. You don't need to say such words to me. Hurry up and go, otherwise all of the items will be taken, and we'll be stuck with a deficit. Senior An said. Without another word and under everyone's watchful eye, he and Dugofeng quickly disappeared into the cave. Strange, wasn't he chasing after Dugofeng a while ago? He even killed several of the Earth Saint Masters of the Duga clan. But he just came back with Dugofeng, as if they had nothing between them in the first place. Right, that's awfully strange. Could Jianchen and Dugofeng have made some sort of secret agreement? I doubt it. Jianchen has already killed several of the Duga clansmen. With Dugofeng's temper, there's no way they would have made a compromise. There has to be something we don't know. As for those men of Qingji's group, they began to whisper among each other. Walking into the cave, Jianchen saw the 4 men he had killed from the Duga clan. Instantly his face took on a forced smile. Previously, he hadn't thought that this matter with Dugofeng would take on such a drastic change. Thus, when he fought against Dugofeng's clansmen, he hadn't held back. With such an urgent matter at hand, Jianchen wasn't lenient on them, so he could chase Dugofeng. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for him to make it through in time. Right now, Jianchen couldn't help but feel a headache come to him. In the current situation, it was quite difficult to explain to Dugofeng what happened. After all, he and Dugofeng had already laid down their arms, and were friends now, not enemies. Dugofeng naturally knew that the 4 Earth Saint Masters he had brought with him had all died by Jianchen's hands. As if he knew what Jianchen was thinking, he said, "They are from the Duga clan, and have nothing to do with me." Furthermore, they were only members from the outside branch. 2 of them were actually disciples accepted into the Duga clan, and are not core members. They were conveniently younger than 50 years old, so my father hired them to be my bodyguards. Hearing Dugofeng's words, Jianchen let out a breath in relief. Dugofeng had a small smile on his face. It seems my choice was quite smart. I didn't follow the wrong person. You and Ming Dong are both heaven-sent geniuses of superior talent than I. I believe that if I follow you too, I will definitely experience things far more spectacular than my own experiences. Perhaps, Jianchen spoke vaguely. Afterward, the 2 men flew into the cave only to see Qingji, Tianmu Ling, and the yellow-clothed girl flying all over the place, as if trying to find the treasure. Shi Xiangran's body lay in a faraway area with no one to care about, while Jetta Wukong's body had been carried away. When they saw Jianchen and Dugofeng walk back into the cave, almost as if nothing had happened between the 2, Qingji, Tianmu Ling, and the yellow-clothed girl became stunned, as if they saw the impossible happen. They were so shocked that they couldn't help but stop where they were. Jianchen, you too? Qingji was filled with confusion as he stared at Jianchen and Dugofeng. The 2 of them didn't look at all like they had been fighting. Tianmu Ling looked at the both of them and asked, "Could it be that you two didn't fight?" Jianchen looked at Tianmu Ling puzzled. "Fight? Just why would we fight?" "Because..." Tianmu Ling was speechless as she tried to find the right words to say. She couldn't tell Jianchen. "You had just killed 4 of the Earth Saint Masters of the Duga clan. Are you and Dugofeng not mortal enemies?" She wasn't that stupid. The puzzled Tianmu Ling and Qingji didn't know just what had happened between Jianchen and Dugofeng. But it didn't take an idiot to know that something secretive had happened. However, they were tactful enough to not ask. There was definitely some sort of shameful business. The yellow-clothed girl spoke in a single sentence with her sing-song voice. Jianchen laughed with an embarrassed smile. It was nothing that shameful. Then, Jianchen's face grew serious as he looked at Qingji and Tianmu Ling. Before he could say anything, Qingji immediately took out the pages to the Heaven Tier battle skill from his space ring, and said before Jianchen could open his mouth, "Jianchen, the 2 of us have fought side by side. No one else can say the same. These pages are of no use to me, so I gift them to you. You have a much bigger need for these than I do." Walking up to Jianchen, Qingji gave the leather book and his pages to Jianchen. Qingji's preemptive action had left Jianchen speechless. With a charming smile he replied, I've no words to describe my gratitude. I Jianchen will remember this. With that, he took the papers with joy. Dugafeng had already given his pages to Jianchen long before. With Qingji's pages, Jianchen now had 17 of the 19 pages. That meant only the 2 pages from Tianmuling were left, until he had all of the pages to the Heaven Tier battle skill. Jianchen looked at Tianmuling with a faint smile. Sister Tianmuling, would it be possible for you to hand over those 2 pages? Recovering from her shock from seeing Jianchen and Dugafeng return safely, Tianmuling laughed as she replied, Little brother, if your elder sister refused, then you would have killed this older sister. With that, she assumed a miserable expression, causing anyone that looked at her to take pity. Jianchen gave an embarrassed smile. Sister Tianmuling likes to joke, I see. I have no grievances with you. Why would I want to kill you? However, the 2 pages you have are worth nothing by themselves. And I am coincidentally short 2 pages. Could it be that you don't wish to see this Heaven Tier battle skill to enter this world and be eternally disgraced? Brother Jianchen's words have some meaning to them. An intact Heaven Tier battle skill is quite fetching to the eye. If it were to be uncompleted, it would be a barbaric act of crime. With that, Tianmuling looked at Jianchen with a charming stare as her jade white arm slowly pressed against Jianchen's dirty sword. As she exhaled slowly, Big brother, how about this? You can hand over the Heaven Tier battle skill pages to elder sister to complete it. Would this work? Of course, your older sister will not treat you unfairly. Tianmuling's other arm pressed against Jianchen's shoulder, with an increasing amount of weight, as she began to hang off of him. Her rosy red lips were several centimeters away from Jianchen's lips. And with each word, her breath could be felt on his lips. This was a strange sensation that exuded charm and seduction, that if not for his own determination, his heart would have been in turmoil. When Jianchen heard her words, his face instantly changed expressions. He desperately wanted this Heaven Tier battle skill. And since they were incredibly hard to obtain, just how could he give it away so easily? Jianchen's change in expression had been noticed by Tianmuling straight away. Aiyo brother, your face was so handsome before. How could it make such a drastic change? Your elder sister was only joking with you. If you wish for the pages in your elder sister's hands, you must fulfill a request of mine. What request? Jianchen immediately spoke with urgency. Haha. It seems brother Jianchen desires this Heaven Tier battle skill. Then your elder sister won't embarrass you. This request is rather simple. As long as you give your elder sister a lip-to-lip kiss, then that will be it. How about it? Is it not simple? Tianmuling's lips were still several centimeters away from Jianchen's, and each word spoken had made her breath press against Jianchen for an itchy effect. Upon hearing Tianmuling's simple request, Jianchen became speechless as a fine layer of sweat appeared on his face. Her words had been explicit, causing Jianchen to grow red in embarrassment. Slut. Shameless. On the other side, the yellow-clothed girl stared at Tianmuling in disgust as she gnashed her teeth together. When she had seen just how intimate Tianmuling was to Jianchen, she had all of a sudden felt an uncomfortable feeling well up inside of her for unknown reasons. Ha, I've almost forgotten about brother's lover over there. Look, your lover is beginning to get jealous. Tianmuling laughed as she gave a charming wink to her, causing the other girl's chest to move up and down in anger before Tianmuling spoke. You shouldn't speak such insane words. Tianmuling was an expert at these types of affairs. The yellow-clothed girl was not an opponent for her. Forget it, I remember brother's words now. Little sister's temper isn't good, it's terrible. I won't tease you anymore then, little brother. If you want the Heaven Tier battle skill pages, then take them. Your elder sister will give them to you. This type of joke isn't something your sister likes. Tianmuling lifted herself off of Jianchen's shoulder and took out the 2 remaining pages from her space belt. Then, with a sideways glance, she spoke to Jianchen. Little brother, don't forget, you owe me a kiss. Jianchen hurriedly took the remaining 2 pages and quickly began to assemble all of the pages on the ground. As for Tianmuling's last few words, he hadn't paid attention to them. The yellow-clothed girl stared furiously at Tianmuling as if she wanted nothing more than to cut her up into 1,000 pieces. To face off against a person that would speak obscenities at a woman, it really annoyed her. This little girl is quite interesting. Tian Muling looked away from her and muttered her own thoughts to herself with a small smile. Then, disregarding Jian Chun, she began to search the cave once more. Soon enough, Jian Chun had completely pieced together the 19 pages. This heaven tier battle skill was written on some sort of unknown magical beast leather, but while it was abnormally soft, its toughness was also very apparent, meaning it would not be damaged easily. Written on the cover of the battle skill were the words Heaven's Stolen Fortune. At these words, Jian Chun began to shiver in happiness as he looked at the entirety of the battle skill. This Heaven's Stolen Fortune was an extraordinarily magical heaven tier battle skill. It allowed for one to temporarily increase one's strength 3 to 10 times over at the cost of the rate of their Saint Force consumption, being increased equally. The rate in which one's strength was multiplied is reflected upon how quickly they used up Saint Force. If a person's strength was multiplied 10 times over, then a 6th cycle Earth Saint Master would be able to fight a Heaven Saint Master, and could even kill one. Naturally, this was only Jian Chen's guess. After all, there was no Heaven Saint Master for him to fight, so he would not know how strong he would be. Chapter 323. Skeleton of the Saint Ruler, 1. Jian Chun could feel his emotions stirring as he read the heaven tier battle skill The Heaven's Stolen Fortune. Jian Chun had long since knew about the rarity of a battle skill, since he had left the Changyang clan. Even an inferior human tier battle skill was worth thousands of coins, and could not be acquired by the most inferior of mercenaries. Right now he had a heaven tier battle skill, so his heart was naturally moved with joy that could not be described. Jian Chun knew clearly how precious heaven tier battle skills were, and could not be exaggerated to any degree. Any time a heaven tier battle skill appeared within the continent, a bloody war would follow straight away, and would eventually lead to an even bigger conflict. On the Tianyuan continent, there were not many heaven tier battle skills. Each time one appeared, countless of Earth Saint Masters and Heaven Saint Masters would fight each other for it. Some Heaven Saint Masters fell to their deaths because of this. Because of the rarity of a precious Heaven tier battle skill, many similarly priced Heaven tier cultivation methods were more highly sought for. It would seem that this Heaven Stolen Fortune was capable of providing enough energy to rebel against the heavens. Jian Chun desperately wanted to flip through the pages, but he was a rational person and forced his surging emotions and stored the heaven tier battle skill within his space ring with dissatisfaction. As soon as the battle skill was stored in his space ring, Jian Chun's emotions were quickly calmed down. Looking around at the people who were searching the cave, he began to join them. The cave was extremely large and spacious. Hanging right on the ceiling of the cave was a single head-sized night pearl that illuminated the entire cave with its shiny glow. At the front of the cave was a single high platform that had contained the wooden box with the heaven tier battle skill. In the middle was a single stone table with a small pile of dust gathered on it. The stone table looked as if it was made from the very same material as the stone door that was protecting the cave out in front. On it was a single chessboard, indicating that the previous owner of the cave loved to play chess. Right next to a wall was a single haphazardly made wooden bookshelf with several books on it. These books had clearly been thumbed through by Qinji's men, since there were dust piles on the floor in front of the bookshelf. Jian Chun walked up to the bookshelf and grabbed a book with a sudden look of shock on his face. All of these books were human tier battle skills. Jian Chun swiftly rummaged through the remaining books to find that 2 of the books were advanced human tier battle skills, and the rest were Earth tier battle skills. 4 of them were primary Earth tier battle skills, and 2 were middle Earth tier battle skills. This discovery had left Jian Chun in a pleasant mood, since this was quite a big find. Since he grew up in a rich clan and had a ruler armament, Qinji and his men were all men with eyes that were taller than their heads. These Earth tier battle skills were beneath their notice, so even after they looked through these books, they didn't take them, which was convenient for Jian Chun. Jian Chun wasn't as overbearing as they were, and began to store away all of the battle skills into his space ring. For the sake of the development of the flame mercenaries, these battle skills were essential. Despite the expansive cave, the items within were relatively scarce. Aside from a few things, there was nothing else to be seen. Qinji, Tianmuling, De Gufeng, and the yellow-robed girl had already scoured the entire cave, and even had some choice words with the cave walls. Suddenly, a noise could be heard from outside the cave, as two middle-aged men with blood pouring out their mouths flew into the cave, before landing heavily on the ground. These two men were the men that Qinji and Tianmulin had brought. Seeing their own men sent flying through the air, Qinji and Tianmuling instantly grew dark in the face, as an aura of killing intent could be felt being directed toward the entrance to the cave. A cyan-colored swordsman wearing black robes came walking in slowly as he argued angrily. "I can't enter? This cave isn't even yours. Just what reason could you have for blocking me from entering?" As Ming Dong entered the cave, many people followed behind him, including an embarrassed seniorin. Right behind him was a large crowd of people who began to crowd the place. "Who are you?" Qinji thundered at Ming Dong dangerously in an unfriendly manner. Ming Dong didn't even look at Qinji as he searched the 5 people in the cave, before finally discovering De Gufeng and Jianchen. With a friendly wave he spoke out, "Hey Jianchen, De Gufeng, you two are here after all. It seems I've found the right place after all." He spoke as he walked up to Jianchen and clasped onto Jianchen's shoulder as a sign of friendship. Seeing how Jianchen and Ming Dong were so close with each other, Tianmuling and Qinji's faces both slowly eased up. Despite this, they were still filled with dissatisfaction at Ming Dong. That was because everyone had been allowed entry into the cave with the disturbance Ming Dong had created. Jianchen forced a smile on his face as he looked at the people behind Ming Dong as he whispered, "Why did you bring so many people in here?" Hearing this, Ming Dong suddenly had an embarrassed look on his face as he laughed awkwardly. "Jianchen, were those guards outside the cave's entrance a part of this group? If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have been so rough." As he spoke, Ming Dong strolled over to where the stone table was and placed a leg on it. In the next second, something strange happened as the stone table, where Ming Dong was stepping on slowly, began to descend into the ground. Immediately leaping off the table, Ming Dong could only look on in astonishment as the table descended deeper into the ground before exclaiming, What's happening? I couldn't have activated some sort of mechanism, have I?" Even as Ming Dong spoke, the group of men in the cave all grew vigilant, as they began to worry whether or not the mechanism that was activated would kill them. As the table descended into the ground, it was almost as if there was indeed a mechanism, as Ming Dong had said. The cave began to shake as a muffled boom could be heard, and a hidden stone door slowly started to rise up from the ground. "There must be a treasure inside. Hurry up and enter before anyone else can. Hurry up and go in. There has to be the heaven tier battle skill inside." The crowded cave of people quickly began to cry out loud as they charged toward the area. Jianchen and the others in the group didn't hesitate for even a moment. In an instant they quickly flew toward the stone door. In a blur of movements, Jianchen, Ming Dong, Qinji and the rest all disappeared from within the cave. The area past the stone doors was quite small. Only a few men could stand inside. There seemed to be a single person resting inside, and right above his head was a single fist-sized night pearl that seemed to endlessly pour out a ray of light that would never cease. As soon as several men entered this small cave, they immediately felt a tremendous amount of pressure coming at them from all angles. It was enough for everyone to suddenly become serious as their hearts could feel the shock. This cave was not a normal one. Right next to one of the walls was a single jade white bed. On the white bed, a single white skeleton could be seen maintaining a meditative position for an unknown amount of time. This entire skeleton exuded a fluorescent light from itself as well. Although it was only a skeleton, it was giving off an incredible amount of pressure. Even the faint amount of power that could be felt in the room was coming from this skeleton. "This is the skeleton of a saint ruler." Tianmuling shouted out loud in shock at the skeleton. Qinji, De Gufeng, Ming Dong, and the yellow-clothed girl all showed similar signs of shock at this newfound discovery. As they discovered the skeleton and felt shock overtake them, everyone soon quickly felt their blood begin to boil. In a single flash of movement of Qinji, that caused a squall of wind to appear, he flew toward the skeleton. At the same time, De Gafeng, Tian Muling, Ming Dong and the yellow-clothed girl all charged toward it. Ming Dong looked at the skeleton with his blood pounding in his veins. Immediately enwrapping himself in his wind-attributed saint force, his speed increased by a terrifying amount and instantly brought him closer to the skeleton. Without any hesitation, he placed his hand on the skeleton and quickly stored it into his space belt. Seeing that Ming Dong had collected the saint ruler's skeleton, Qinji, Tian Muling, and even the yellow-clothed girl's face began to look exceedingly disappointed. Suddenly, a saw-toothed blade ruler armament appeared in Qinji's hand as a whip-like ruler armament appeared in Tian Muling's own hand, as they both attacked Ming Dong. Du Gafeng sneered before pulling out his flame sword from his back, before closing the distance between himself and Tian Muling to substitute for Ming Dong as a strong individual. Simultaneously, Jian Chen had already pulled out his light wind sword as he flew at Qinji. With a firm outreach, the light wind sword began to exude sword qi into the area around Qinji, causing him to be forced to pull back his ruler armament. On the other side, the already ready-to-strike longbow wielder saw that both Jian Chen and Du Gafeng were unexpectedly helping the one that had taken the saint ruler's skeleton. In an instant, she had realized that the relationship between these three were not ordinary at all, and slowly withdrew her bow. Du Gafeng didn't hesitate in the slightest as he slashed his sword at Tian Muling, forcing her to use her barrier. Although it blocked his attack, the force behind the blow was enough to send her flying back. Jian Chen had no desire to fight against Qinji. As soon as he renounced his attack on Ming Dong, Jian Chen drew back, as well as he gave an apologetic look to Qinji. After all, the man had just given him the pages to the heaven-tier battle skill. Jian Chen wasn't a man that would show ingratitude to one that helped him, so this attack held no force behind it. Qinji naturally realized the intent behind Jian Chen's attack, and waved his hands in a disheartened manner. Fine, brother Jian Chen. I'll give you face, this saint ruler skeleton I'll give up on. Despite the dissatisfaction in his heart, Qinji was secretly afraid of Jian Chen, and did not wish to become an enemy of his. It was with great difficulty that he had established a decent friendship with Jian Chen, so he did not wish to ruin it all, and become enemies over the saint ruler skeleton. Even if he had become enemies with Jian Chen, it was possible that he wouldn't receive anything, and would share the same fate as Jetta Wukong and Shi Xiangran. My apologies, brother Qinji. I hope I did not offend, and that you will forgive me. Jian Chen cupped his hands in an apologetic manner toward him, while confused at what just happened. Could a saint ruler skeleton hold some sort of treasure? How infuriating. Such a good item was taken away by you. No, that won't do. I want compensation. Tian Muling seethed with rage toward Jian Chen and the other two. Right now her emotions had grown terrible. Even her normal words of big brother were gone from her speech as she called out to Jian Chen in such an informal manner. Ming Dong turned to look at Tian Muling and Qinji before slowly walking up to Jian Chen. With a smile he spoke with some emotion. Jian Chen, my luck was quite good after all. I've picked up a treasure. What is that good for? Jian Chen had to ask as he looked at Ming Dong with a look of pure concentration for an answer to his question. Chapter 324. Collapse of the Immortal's Cave. What is that good for? Jian Chen had to ask as he looked at Ming Dong with a look of pure concentration for an answer to his question. At this moment a loud commotion could be heard from behind as the entire crowd finally came into this room. In a flash, the small room was filled to the brim, as even more people tried to get in until the room. It seemed as if the room was like a steamed bun, and could not fill up anymore. In front of Jian Chen and the others, there was still a small empty space as everyone recognized who they were. They all knew of their strength, and while they did not wish to be constantly pushed in from the others behind them, they did not wish to get close to Jian Chen, and so they kept their distance in fear that getting any closer would mean their lives would be in jeopardy. Jianchen, I'll explain it in full details later. But in short, we've got a treasure. Mingdong spoke to Jianchen. Jianchen nodded his head calmly without another word as he stared with narrowed eyes at the group in front of them. In a split second, this small room had filled up with people, and even more people were trying to get in. This had meant that if they wanted to get out, it would be a problem. Suddenly, the entire cave began to shake as the ground shook, as if there was an earthquake. As soon as the tremors started, a single fracture appeared within the cave before quickly expanding into multiple spider web-like cracks that filled every single corner of the cave. Dust began to fall from the roof as the cracks spread out, obstructing everyone's line of sight. This sudden development caused Jianchen to grow startled. Right now, this cave was on the verge of collapsing in on itself. In contrast, those men from the outside had been rushing into the cave almost as if the heaven-tier battle skill was clouding their minds. They crowded inside the room as they shouted out for the battle skill. Despite so many people coming in, they didn't earn a single treasure. That was because this room only had the Saint Ruler's skeleton, which was claimed by Mingdong, and nothing else. The tremors within the cave began to grow stronger as many stone fragments began to fall down from the ceiling. Even the walls to the cave were starting to crumble as stone slabs fell from them. Crap, the cave's going to collapse. It seems this cave took one too many attacks. The Saint Ruler's skeleton must have been living in harmony with the cave. So once we took the skeleton, the pressure we felt earlier disappeared with it. The cave can't hold itself up any longer, Jianchen. We have to get out right away. Mingdong had learned a lot in his 1 year away from Jianchen, so he had quickly figured out the relationship between the skeleton and the cave. Even Jianchen's face grew serious as he looked at the group in front of him and yelled, "The cave is about to collapse. Everyone hurry up and get out." Jianchen's voice was almost like a horn that blasted everyone's ears like a thunderclap as he commanded them all to exit the cave. Those men who were blinded by the heaven-tier battle skill immediately regained their senses and realized the situation that they were in. Each one took on a look of shock as they all cried out, "Crap! The cave's collapsing. Hurry up and get out or we all die here. Crap, it really is collapsing. Get out now. I don't want to die here. Whoever doesn't want to die needs to hurry up and get out of here." More and more people began to notice the strangeness of the situation and began to pale in the face. After several shouts, everyone began to charge for the exit to the outside world, as if their lives depended on it. Many men had even been pushed to the ground and trampled in their rush to run out. "Fucker who stepped on me. Hurry up and show yourself. Do you wish to die? That's my hand you stepped on. Don't step on me." In this moment of panic, everyone had forgotten about the treasures in their rush to escape the cave. The cave was already dropping stone fragments from the roof. If they didn't escape soon, they would be buried deep underground. Following the group's exit, Jianchen and the others began to fly straight out of the room, as well now that the room was more spacious than before. The four corners of the cave continued to fracture, creating larger and larger cracks as the cave continued to tremble, before a secret spot in the cave was suddenly revealed. Jianchen's eyes flashed as he took notice of this sudden secret. A purple and gold box could be seen sitting inside a small hole, within the dark and dusty room. The light given off by this box was extremely eye-catching. Jianchen quickly flew toward the hidden site and quickly grabbed the purple and gold box into his space ring. By the time he was done with his actions, more and more secret spots within the walls began to show up. By this point, Mingdong, Qinji, Tianmuling, Dugufeng, and the yellow-clothed girl had already discovered the existence of these secret spots. Without hesitation, each one dove for the hidden spots and began to hurriedly collect the contents within their space belts. The few people that hadn't yet left the room had a few sharp-eyed men that saw this with a look of bliss and let out an ecstatic shout. Immediately dashing for the secret spots, one of them pulled out a single animal leather book. ADV Advanced. Earth Tier Battle Skill. Good heavens. I'm rich. The person cried out as he looked at the book with joy and unable to restrain his emotions. At this sound, many people turned around to look. This is an advanced Earth Tier cultivation method. It suits me perfectly. Another person cried out with the book in hand. Quickly, more and more people began to grab at the items within the secret spots. There were many things within the secret spots like space rings, cultivation method manuals, battle skills, and even several precious medicines. With several men all collecting the items, the secret spots within the cave were quickly cleared out. At that moment, a Earth Saint Master suddenly took out an unknown book before widening his eyes and slowly crying out in alarm, "Heaven!" As soon as that one word escaped his lips, he immediately came to his senses and clasped his mouth shut with his hand as he looked around himself in anxiety. A sudden flash of fire could be seen as Duga Feng appeared by his body with his ruler armament straight through the man's chest. Taking the book in his hands, his eyes swept across the title before smiling. So it really is a heaven-tier battle skill. Hearing those words, Tian Muling put away the whip she had only just took out as she complained. "You all move far too fast. The good things were already taken away by you." Qin Ji put away his ruler armament, as well as he shook his head and sighed. Even the longbow wielder had put away her own bow. An earth-tier battle skill was something that they all didn't care for. But a heaven-tier battle skill was something entirely different. To them, every single heaven-tier battle skill was capable of indirectly increasing the strength of their clans. Even saint rulers would covet heaven-tier battle skills at the same time. Those clans with ruler armaments would not dare to disregard them. If it were not for not Dugu Feng's reaction speed, then Qin Ji and his men would have been the ones that would have gained hold of the heaven-tier battle skill, since they were the next closest people. Killing people for treasure after seeing such goods was a trivial matter that was common within the Tianyuan continent. Seeing Duga Feng begin to kill people for their items, everyone no longer had any desire to stay in this place, and quickly ran toward the exit. Bang! 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 Several large pieces of stone began to fall and crash into the ground with a loud bang. Some parts of the cave had already collapsed while other parts of the cave continued to rain stone fragments down onto the ground. "This place can't hold on for much longer, we better leave." Ming Dong spoke out in anxiety. The group began to fly toward the exit to the cave in a rush. Bang! A single 4-meter tall stone fragment smashed into the ground right where the passageway was. "Out of the way!" A single roar could be heard from behind as Dugu Feng smashed the stone fragment with his giant flame sword into powder. Without hesitation, everyone charged through the dusty passageway in an attempt to run even faster than before. Soon enough, the group finally made it through the exit to the cave with everyone looking worse for wear. Not only were their clothes filled with dust, but even their faces had a layer of dirt on them that made them seem extremely dirty. "Phew, we're finally out. I thought we were going to be buried alive." Ming Dong exhaled as he dusted himself off. Right in front of them was the group that had pushed their way out earlier. A good majority of them were all dusty and had a good layer of dirt on them. Some of the more unfortunate great saint masters were even nursing their wounds from when the stone fragments fell on them. "Out of the way! Get out of the way, you annoying!" Suddenly, a voice that Jianchen was all too familiar with could be heard. Jianchen turned his head to look only to see Qin Shao pushing through several people in a hurry through the dust. "What's your rush? Didn't you get enough from earlier? Or did you forget that you wanted to die? Fuck, so a lowly great saint master dares push me? You must be terribly impatient to die." Immediately, a loud group of men cursed in anger toward Qin Shao, as the group of men that he had pushed began to prepare to find trouble with Qin Shao and start a fight. Qin Shao didn't bother to listen to the angry swears, as he hurriedly looked all over the place. Soon enough, he saw Jianchen and let out a sigh of relief before rushing on over to him. "Jianchen, are you fine now? I heard that the cave collapsed, and since there were a lot of people in there, I began to worry." Upon seeing that Qin Shao and Jianchen knew each other, the ones that had cursed at Qin Shao immediately went silent and obediently closed their mouths in fear that even a fart would come out of them. As for those who were prepared to fight with Qin Shao, they all went pale in the face and submissively retreated back into the crowd to blend in with it. By now, Jianchen's fame and reputation had preceded him. He and the 5 experts were two matters on completely uneven footing. Jianchen was someone everyone knew and didn't dare offend. After all, his fight against Zhigu was seen by everyone quite clearly. Not only was he able to kill him, but he was able to take on Zhigu's Earth-tier battle skills without any harm to his body. This was an entity that was far too strong for anyone to dare offend. The most important thing was that Shi Gran and Jetta Wukong of the 5 experts had died from within the cave, while only Qin Ji and a few others had seen the reason for their death. But these 2 men had grievances with Jianchen. With that, it did not take much thought to connect the dots. Adding on to the fact that Jianchen had chased De Gufeng out of the cave, everyone could see the pattern from there. After all, the majority of the men there were all meticulous people. Although the heaven-tier battle skill had temporarily made their brains numb, this was not be proof that they were stupid. A heaven-tier battle skill was just too strong of an allure for them to resist. Seeing the deep look of concern on Qin Zhao's face, Jianchen couldn't help but smile at him. "Don't worry, I'm fine." Ming Dong walked toward Qin Xiao with a dusty face as he clasped onto Qin Zhao's shoulder. "Hey, brother Qin Xiao. Still remember me?" Qin Xiao quickly turned to look at the dusty and dirty face of Ming Dong, but the dirt concealed nothing from Qin Xiao. His eyes quickly recognized Ming Dong's face and widened in surprise before shouting out loud in amazement. Ming Dong! Weren't you not going to participate in the gathering of the mercenaries? How are you here?" Ming Dong laughed. "I wasn't planning to, but then someone was looking for me, so I came along." "Someone was looking for you? Who?" Qin Xiao spoke with confusion. "It's a long story. Let us wait for us to find an empty place before we talk. Come, Qin Xiao, let me introduce you to everyone." Ming Dong grabbed onto the flame sword-wielding De Gufeng and pulled at him. "Brother Qin Xiao, this is the newest member of our group, De Gufeng. From now on he will be a fellow brother." Qin Xiao was taken back for a moment before quickly resuming his straightforward attitude and greeted De Gufeng enthusiastically. De Gufeng replied with a smile. Qin Ju, who had just pushed his way out from behind, had overheard the entire conversation with a look of utter disbelief. He didn't dare believe what he had just heard, but he didn't see De Gufeng say anything in objection, and had even replied back to Qin Xiao with a smile. In the end, Qin Ju could only choose to accept this as the truth, but his heart was still filled with doubts. De Gufeng was one of the 5 experts and simultaneously had a clan behind him that had even the Tianqing clan's respect. Just how could a person like this suddenly become so close to Jianchen? Chapter 325. Huang Wan. This matter must be reported to the patriarch. With the young lord and the disciple of the Duga clans to suddenly become friends with each other, this spells out something major for our clan. If we can use this newfound friendship with the Duga clan, then our clan will definitely pull out ahead of the others. Qin Ju thought to himself. Although he was a quiet person who rarely spoke, he was not at all stupid. Qin Ji walked up to Jianchen with a smile. "Brother Jianchen, when you have time, you should come by our Qinhuang kingdom. Our Qinhuang kingdom is a few dozen kilometers north of Mercenary City. When you come by our kingdom, come over to the Imperial Palace and mention my name. This jade ornament will be your proof. As long as you can take this out, no one will doubt you." Qin Ji took out a small jade ornament the size of his fist from his space belt. On the ornament was a complicated design with the word Qin written on it. "Will do. When I have the time, I will go meet brother Qin Ji in your kingdom." Jianchen smiled as he took the ornament from him. In his mind, Jianchen began to suspect something. Was Qin Ji the prince of the Qinhuang kingdom? Qin Ji and Jianchen spoke a few more words before finally splitting up from each other. "Little brother, I have to leave now too. Make sure you remember, you still owe one small thing." Tian Muling spoke as she walked up to Jianchen and spoke to him in a gentle manner with her mature charm. Jianchen gave an embarrassed smile as he spoke. "Sister Tian Muling likes to joke, I see. You've given me a precious item. In the future when I have the chance, I will definitely return the favor 10 or even 100 times back." Tian Muling followed Qin Ji's lead and left after that. Everything inside the cave was no longer recoverable. Since it had collapsed, many groups of men began to leave in 2s and 3s. Yet some people were still staying behind. Jianchen and his group didn't have any plans to stay behind either. After summoning everyone, they all left together. But unlike last time, their group had two new people, Du Gufeng and Ming Dong. Walking through the forest while chatting on the road, Jianchen introduced Ming Dong to Senior An and Yun Zheng. It was only the yellow-clothed girl that Jianchen had no idea on what to do since he wasn't familiar with her at all. Previously it was because of Shi Xiangran that they had been forced to travel together. But even after traveling together for at least a month, Jianchen still didn't know the girl's name. He had wanted to find out, but because of her temper, and because of the accident where he saw her body, Jianchen was afraid that she would give him no face at all. Thus, he had no desire to be the one to poke at the thorns. "Ah, Jianchen, who is that girl with the longbow behind us? She's really beautiful. I Ming Dong have never seen such a pretty woman. I think only that unknown second miss from the Tianqing clan would compare to her." Ming Dong asked Jianchen in a low voice with a great amount of curiosity. Hearing that, Jianchen forced a smile on his face. "You should forget about finding an answer about her from me. I don't even know her name. She and I had a small misunderstanding in the past, and because of Shi Xiangran and his ruler armament, we were forced to band together in order to stand against him. This way, we would be able to defend ourselves against him." "Shi Xiangran? Is that one of the 5 experts? How strange. I thought I heard that you were able to kill 2 ruler armament users. These types of people should pose no threat to you at all. Just how did you feel so threatened to travel along with her? Could it be Shi Xiangran is extremely strong?" Ming Dong asked with confusion. "That's not it at all." Jianchen spoke. "Shi Xiangran had a strange barrier that made my attacks harmless to him, with his incredible ruler armament to attack us from a large range, and was equally hard to dodge. Although I had a secret power, I wasn't sure that it would be a threat to Shi Xiangran. For the best-case scenario, I had decided to travel with her. It was only today in the cave that I was forced into a tough situation, that I could try out my last resort against Shi Xiangran's barrier. I didn't think that it would be enough to break through. Because of this, Shi Xiangran and Jetta Wukong's barrier were no longer a threat, and I was able to kill them." Hearing this, Ming Dong looked on with shock. "Jianchen, you were able to shatter their barrier, is that true?" "I was able to borrow some outside help." With that, Jianchen revealed the azure and violet sword qi to Ming Dong with his finger. The 2 lights glowed faintly. While they were brighter and stronger than before, it was only by a marginal amount. Under the scorching sun, this light was nothing. Just as the 2 glows of sword qi appeared, a strange incorporeal amount of sword qi filled the air, causing everyone to feel a sudden chill that made their hearts quake in fear. The azure and violet sword qi was Jianchen's biggest trump card, but he had revealed it many times already, and it had been seen by many people. Thus, the azure and violet sword qi could not longer be considered a secret. It was no longer necessary to try and hide it. It was only necessary to hide away the secret behind it. After the survival competition was over, they would enter the individual fighting tournament, which would take place on an elevated platform against other strong individuals. If Jianchen wanted to be the number 1 rank, then he would have to use his azure and violet sword qi. Thus there was no longer a point in hiding the sword qi. Jianchen didn't talk about the azure and violet sword qi too much. Aside from a little display of their strength and their name, Jianchen hadn't said anything else about it. Even with the azure and violet sword qi revealed, he still wanted to keep some factors of it hidden, so when the time comes, it would still be a mysterious threat. "Jianchen, the azure and violet sword qi you have, could it be from the supreme treasure you bought from the treasure pavilion?" Qin Zhao's eyes flashed with realization as he asked his question. Hearing Qin Zhao's words, Jianchen was stunned. He didn't think that Qin Zhao would have made a connection between the multicolored stone in his body and the azure and violet sword qi. This had also made him smile. He now had an explanation. This was because Qin Zhao's words had some meaning to them. The strong azure and violet sword qi, using the energy from the supreme treasure, was a fitting explanation. Jianchen's attitude caused everyone to think that the azure and violet sword qi was because of a supreme treasure. Although Senior and Yun Zheng had no idea what a supreme treasure, they both knew from the name itself that it was an unknown treasure, and looked at Jian Chun with envy. The yellow-clothed girl walked up to Jian Chun and spoke quietly. I have some words to speak with you. Jian Chun had some doubts as he looked at her, before finally walking out of the group, to a vacant spot 100 meters away, where the girl followed him to. Ming Dong and the others stopped traveling as they all looked on, curious to know what the girl wanted to speak to Jian Chun about. Then Ming Dong had a strange but deep smile on his face as he laughed. That girl must like Jian Chun if she has to walk that far away, so that we wouldn't be able to hear them. Senior nodded his head and thought as well. I can see that as being likely. Jian Chun is quite handsome and strong. He's not too bad of a person as well. There is no woman under the heavens that would not be swayed by him. However, that girl's temper is really quite bad. Could it be that she is the spoiled daughter of some rich clan? She really is quite haughty. Hearing Senior An's words, Yun Zheng and Qin Xiao both nodded their head in agreement. Only Qin Ju and Duge Feng remained silent. On one side, Jian Chun looked at the yellow-clothed girl. What did you want to say? The girl looked at Jian Chun with a complicated look and hesitated before saying, Not only did you kill Shi Xiangran and Jetta Wukong, but you also took their ruler armaments. The two clans won't let you go for this. You should be more careful in the future. The girl spoke with a rare amount of concern, although she still harbored some angry feelings from when Jian Chun had seen her body. But after dealing with him for some time, she had come to understand him more. From her anger for him rose a new type of feeling. That I know, Jian Chun stated. Also, I would like to thank you for killing Shi Xiangran. Now that he is dead, there is no need for us to continue traveling together. Therefore, I should head out on my own way. The girl's voice was extraordinarily soft, and in her eyes was a seldom-seen reluctance. Although she had only come to know Jian Chun for a month, she came to enjoy this feeling she had. Right now, as she was prepared to leave Jian Chun's group, a complicated sensation could be felt rising up within her body. Jian Chun seemed to look far away without a single word as the winds from the area blew on his body, causing his clothes to billow and his long black hair to flutter and dance in the winds. This sight made him seem like a hero from a legend. The girl looked at Jian Chun's handsome face, as she began to struggle for a moment before finally speaking out loud with courage. Did you not want to know my name? You never told me, how would I know it? Jian Chun spoke calmly. Did it not occur to you to ask? The girl began to look a little angry as she stared at Jian Chun with her beautiful face. With your temper, I was afraid of a bad result. Jian Chun spoke helplessly. Against her temper, he had tasted it enough times. She was finally defeated. With a hurt look, she spoke in a low voice. I am Huang Wan, remember my name. Goodbye. With that, she turned to walk away from Jian Chun as the wind blew behind her, causing her yellow clothes to flutter in the air. Even her long hair had begun to dance in a ballad-like motion as the wind carried it. Chapter 326. Hidden energy within the Saint Ruler's skeleton. Jian Chun stared at the still close-by girl with some hesitation before opening his mouth once more. Wait a moment. Hearing the voice behind her, the girl stopped her steps before replying to him without turning around. What is the matter? Jian Chun spoke softly. I am thinking that you have no barrier to protect yourself with. I do not have any barrier with me. The girl didn't deny it. Jian Chun spoke without flinching. You have a ruler armament with you and no barrier. Do you really think you could travel safely like this? Although Shi Xiangran is dead, he is but only one of the many men lusting for your ruler armament. For example, if Qin Ji and Tian Muling were to face off against you, it would be incredibly difficult to fight by yourself. I trust that you know just how much any clan would value another ruler armament. For the sake of their clan's expansion, it can't be said whether or not they would try to snatch away your Cylinder Bow. After all, to them, this is a huge achievement, and at the same time, you have no relations to them. Aside from those two, this place still has many strong Earth Saint Masters, and some that may even be organized. While your Cylinder Bow is capable of killing an Earth Saint Master with ease, if a group of Earth Saint Masters were to attack you at the same time, Would you have enough time to shoot them all? In the end, your lunar bow is only strong from afar. If they were to get close, then your lunar bow would lose its superior edge. In the end, who knows whether or not someone will place a trap for you? Jianchen didn't know whether or not his words would be enough to convince Huang Wuan to stay behind. Perhaps it was because of the month they had traveled together. But Jianchen had no desire to see the beautiful girl die in a place like this. Jianchen didn't have a good understanding of ruler armaments. But he did know that for the sake of protecting his ruler armament, the extremely proud De Gafeng had sacrificed his own life, and was even willing to make a blood oath. From this, Jianchen could infer that the ruler armament was truly something that many families would pay a heavy price for. With Huang Wuan by herself as a long-ranged ruler armament user, if an enemy were to get close to her, then her longbow would lose its effectiveness. She didn't have a barrier either, so it would be hard to avoid those who might have a greedy heart. Qin Ji and Tian Muling were the two people Jianchen was most worried about. If either one were to get close to Huang Wuan for a long period of time, then they would be able to touch her with ease. Although Jianchen wasn't sure they would do anything against Huang Wuan, one must be cautious even if the chance was only 1%. Hearing Jianchen's words, Huang Wuan's face grew extremely serious. Jianchen's words made perfect sense, and after the events from the cave, everyone knew that she had a ruler armament. Although this was something most people were only hearing about for the first time, they would know what a ruler armament was soon enough. She was afraid of meeting these men, with this treasure on her, and no defensive barrier, while traveling by herself. She would definitely be a target for those who might come across her. With that in mind, Huang Wuan's face grew dark. Originally, she had thought that Shi Xiangran's death would be the only thing she needed to live in peace. She hadn't thought that she would gain a new type of headache. This ruler armament was far too precious. Just in case anything happens, you should continue to travel with us. This round of the tournament is almost over anyways. By the end, we'll all be transported out of this area. You'll be safe then. Seeing Huang Wuan's willpower waver a bit, Jianchen took the chance to strike. He didn't know whether or not he was a friend or stranger to her, but he had no desire to see something unexpected happen to her. Maybe it was because she was exceedingly beautiful, or maybe it was because he had grown to like her as a friend in the month they had been traveling together. Or maybe it was because he was still feeling guilty about seeing her body that one time. But this was a complicated matter that even Jianchen couldn't explain clearly. Huang Wuan stood there without moving, almost as if she were a statue. Then after some time, she was finally convinced and nodded her head. With a sigh of relief, Jianchen smiled. Let's head back now and find a place. Afterward, we just need to wait. With our collected tokens, we'll definitely be within the top 500. With Huang Wuan deciding not to leave the group, the two walked back to the group. As they returned, Jianchen couldn't help but notice Ming Dong gave him a knowing wink. Despite not saying anything, it didn't take an idiot to figure out what that wink meant, but Jianchen sensibly said nothing. Brother, how amazing! This girl is comparable to even my sister in beauty, but she isn't as kind as my sister. Qin Xiao laughed as he spoke to Jianchen with a meaningful smile, causing Jianchen to smile awkwardly. The relationship between him and Huang Wuan wasn't like what everyone thought, but Ming Dong and the others were trying to say otherwise. If he tried to explain himself now, not only would it not have a single impact on the situation, but it would also deepen everyone's misunderstanding. Later, within a clear and vacant space, several white tents were pitched. In the center of the ring of tents were Ming Dong, Xing Yuan, Yin Zheng, Jianchen, De Gafeng, Qin Xiao, Qin Zhu, and Huang Wuan, who all sat at a circular table with a variety of sweet-smelling dishes on it. These things had all been taken from Jetta Wukong's space ring. All sorts of good-looking dishes could be found inside. Since the space within the space ring was larger than that of a space belt, there were a large amount of dishes that were cooked and meant for eating over a long period of time. Furthermore, the dishes within Jetta Wukong's space ring were of the finest delicacy, and there was enough for the group to eat for several months. After the meal, a few of the men left the table, leaving behind Jianchen, Ming Dong, De Gafeng and Huang Wuan. Ming Dong looked around the table, before taking a sneak peek behind to see if anyone else would come back to the table. Then, with a mysterious glance at Jianchen, he asked, Jianchen, do you wish to know what the skeleton of a saint ruler can be used for? Yes, I'm quite curious. Just why is it so precious everyone would try to steal it? Jianchen spoke with curiosity. Then let me tell you. A sing-song-like voice could be heard as Huang Wan suddenly took the initiative to speak with a quiet voice. Preparing to speak, Huang Wang organized her thoughts before saying, a saint ruler has a limited lifespan, so naturally, they die a natural death. This type of death is what we have come to call a seated death. The energy within a saint ruler is incredibly strong and pure. That is why after a saint ruler dies by a seated death, the energy and saint weapon within their body do not dissipate into the world. The energy continues to stay within the body and slowly enters the skeleton. After some time, the saint ruler will leave behind its skeleton with its full strength intact, meaning it is very precious. If one were to obtain the power of a saint ruler, would that not make people envious? Jianchen nodded his head in understanding. I understand a bit more, but just how did your ruler armaments come to be then? According to what you've said, the energy of a saint ruler blends into the skeleton, while the energy from their saint weapon should dissipate. How could it continue on to exist? Huang Wan spoke. A saint ruler's strength is classified into 9 levels. This system is called the 9 heavenly layers. When a saint ruler reaches the 9th heavenly layer, they are standing at the pinnacle of the current realm, and from there it is only one small step to become a saint king. At this step, the saint weapon within their body has reached a peak of qualitative energy. By this point, a saint ruler is strong enough to sever the connection between himself and the saint weapon. Thus, when a saint ruler reaches the 9th heavenly layer, they will take out their saint weapons and sever the connection. The saint weapon will be able to maintain the energy within it forever without dissipating, and thus becomes a ruler armament. So when a saint ruler reaches the 9th heavenly layer, they will be able to sever the saint weapon's connection to themselves. But no one under the 9th heaven layer will be able to accomplish such a feat. Then, when these saint rulers die a seated death, their saint weapon's energy will be harmonized into their skeletons, just like this one skeleton we have now. Jianchen asked. Correct, Huang Wan said. Then that's strange. When a saint ruler reaches the 9th heavenly layer, just why would they sever their connection with their saint weapon and give it to someone else? Of course, for those saint rulers with a family, they would do this to benefit the younger generation. But if I recall correctly, this wouldn't be the case for most people, as not every saint ruler has such a clan to be in. Jianchen asked the question on his mind. It is because of a correlation to an unrealistic legend. Because of that, every saint ruler that reaches the 9th heavenly layer will choose to break off the connection and retain the perfected state of the saint weapon. Huang Wan said. Legend? Oh right. Jianchen, Uncle Tian told me something before, let me explain it to you. Ming Dong said. Uncle Tian said that when a 9th heavenly layer saint ruler severs the connection with his saint weapon, they will leave behind a small amount of essence, chi and spirit, in their saint weapon and eagerly await for an impossible legend to happen to them. What legend is that? Jianchen spoke eagerly. Resurrection. Dugafeng spoke seriously. What resurrection? Jianchen said startled as he stared at them all with disbelief. Ming Dong nodded his own head with a solemn look. That's right, it truly is resurrection. This is what Uncle Tian told me. That's just how could it be that? Jianchen spoke as if the very notion was inconceivable. Huang Wan sighed as she replied. Of course it's not possible since no one has ever achieved such a thing before. However, one thing is for sure. Those saint rulers at the 9th heavenly layer are all staunch believers of this without any doubt. Thus, when a saint ruler reaches the epitome of the 9th heavenly layer, they choose to sever their connection with their saint weapon. Dugafeng grew dark. I can only assume that there is something we don't know. Otherwise, why would the saint rulers at the 9th heavenly layer believe in such a fairy tale without a doubt? Jianchen shook his head heavily. This is still too inconceivable. For a saint ruler to use their saint weapon in order to resurrect That is too much of an exaggeration. It is no wonder this legend has never borne fruit, since it is an impossible task to begin with. As Jianchen spoke these words, Huang Wuan, Dugafeng, and Ming Dong all agreed with him. Chapter 327. End of the survival competition. In regards to this information, Jianchen was truly shocked. Huang Wuan and Dugafeng were both from major clans with a saint ruler ancestor as an overseer, and were both in high positions in the clans, so they knew enough about these matters. While Ming Dong was born in a small village, because of the unfathomably strong saint ruler in the Madare Shrine, and Ming Dong's relationship with him, he was able to learn many secrets that made him as knowledgeable as Huang Wuan and Dugafeng. The three of them continued to give their accounts on the secrets of a saint ruler, allowing Jianchen to understand not only their strength classification, but also the powerful might of the remains. The total amount of accumulated energy within a saint ruler skeleton was capable of being absorbed by a cultivator for their cultivation. However, only a heaven saint master would be strong enough to extract the energy from a saint ruler's skeleton, since a saint ruler's energy was far too concentrated for anyone below a heaven saint master to endure. Other than that, ruler armaments somehow carried a shocking secret within them. A saint ruler that died an ascetic death would be able to resurrect with it. This was almost like a story of the Arabian Nights. No one had ever seen it happen before. Although only a saint ruler at the 9th heavenly layer would be able to sever the connection with their saint weapon. The rest of this legend was nothing more than that, unless there was a secret that the common man wouldn't know. These two bits of information had given Jianchen a lot to think about. He truly did feel that this world was far too strange, and was unlike the original world he used to live in. Dugafeng took out an unknown book from his space ring, and handed it over to Jianchen. This is a heaven-tier battle skill, but only a water-attributed person will be able to use it. It's no use for me, so you should take it. Hearing that, Jianchen's eyes sparked together. Taking this book to see the contents, he had to make sure himself that it was truly a battle skill for only a water attribute cultivator. Turning to Huang Wuan, he spoke. If I remember correctly, you are a water attribute. This heaven-tier battle skill will be for you then. Taking a look at the battle skill, she threw it back at Jianchen. My heaven-tier battle skill is higher than this one. I won't be needing it. Could you not learn both of them? Jianchen asked. Huang Wuan stared oddly at Jianchen. A heaven-tier battle skill is the highest battle skill on the continent. Each heaven-tier battle skill is highly profound, so that a regular person would never be able to fully comprehend a heaven-tier battle skill in their entire life. It isn't to say that learning more battle skills are good. Even if one were to learn many heaven-tier battle skills, they would not be better than one who mastered a single one. So one should try to fully master a single heaven-tier battle skill, and not waste time learning anything else. Wasting energy is one thing, but wasting progress is another. Hearing her reasoning, Jianchen couldn't argue with it. He stored the battle skill away since he had no use for it now. It would become useful when the flame mercenaries expanded in the future. Jianchen took out the space rings from Jetta Wukong and Shixiangran. He took the tokens out of the space rings. They made a crashing sound as they landed on the table. With a conservative estimate, there were around 2,000 tokens in total. Ming Dong, you've been away for too long. These tokens are necessary to move on. Go ahead and take some. Jianchen said to him. With a happy look, Ming Dong said, Great. I was seriously lacking some tokens. Right now tokens are quite hard to find. We've met several people on the road already, but their tokens had already been taken by someone else, leaving me with only 100 tokens at the most. Ming Dong began to take some of the tokens, putting them into his space ring. That'll be enough. 500 tokens should be enough to grant me an advancement. Ming Dong spoke as he took 400 of the tokens. That won't be enough. If you wish to move on, you'll need at least 1,200 tokens, because the amount of participants are far more than you would think. I could only guess that there were at least 500,000 people in this round. Dugafeng said. Jianchen grew startled at that. He hadn't thought that the amount of participants would be that much. He had only thought that 200,000 people, at most, would be participating. Ming Dong took another pile of tokens. To be on the safe side, he now had 1,500 tokens, which should guarantee him a spot in the top 500. The amount of tokens with Jian Chun, Huang Wuan and Du Gafeng had easily exceeded that amount, so they hadn't any thoughts about these tokens at all. Then, Jian Chun had Qin Xiao, Qin Zhu, Signorin, and Yun Jin all brought over, so that the remaining tokens could be split among them. I only came to act as the bodyguard to Qin Xiao. I won't be participating in the finals. The normally silent Qin Zhu spoke, as he donated the tokens he had on him to everyone else. I only came to participate as a mission to gain experience from my father. I won't be participating in the finals either. With my current strength, participating would only end in my death. Qin Xiao spoke. Jian Chun turned his gaze to Senior En and Yun Zheng. Although he hadn't known the two for long, the two of them had traveled with Jian Chun for a long road, so Jian Chun couldn't mistreat them. Yun Zheng and Senior En consulted for some time before Yun Zheng ultimately backed out and gave his tokens to Senior En. Senior En's strength is greater than mine, and he also has an earth attribute. He was also able to save my life multiple times, so I will give this chance to him. Yun Zheng spoke. After the tokens were given, Jian Chun took out 4 Class 5 monster cores and gave Senior En and Yun Zheng 2 of them as a reward for defending the cave. Right now we all have enough tokens. All that's left is to wait. After these next few days, we can finally leave from this demonic place. We've all suffered greatly in this 1 year, so we should all be happy now. Allow me to use this to entertain everyone. Ming Dong laughed as he took out the carcass of a giant magical beast from his space ring, causing the tent they were in to bulge outward. Heavens, you killed even the Amethyst Thunder Lion? Qin Zhu and Senior En both cried out in astonishment as they stared at the bloody corpse of the Amethyst Thunder Lion. Aside from Jian Chun, Du Gafeng and Huang Wuan, everyone else did not know of Ming Dong's strength. Qin Xiao and Qin Zhu had both believed that Ming Dong was the same great saint master they had known a year ago. Ming Dong gave a pleased smile as he laughed. This Amethyst Thunder Lion is quite a strange magical beast. I'm sure it could be considered a mutant. Its strength was already at the peak level for a Class 5 magical beast, and was not weaker than a Heaven Saint Master in strength. If it were not for the heavy injuries already, I would not be able to kill it as easily as I did. However, that digging maniac Pangolin Emperor was far too crafty and ran away. But I was still able to land us a fine delicacy. Let us enjoy this high-leveled magical beast meat, and its multiple good benefits. After leaving the tent, Jian Chun began to look at the items he had taken from the secret spots in the cave by himself. Before the Immortal's cave had collapsed, he was able to grab 3 Earth-tier battle skills, 4 Earth-tier cultivation methods, several white jade bottles with wonderful-smelling medicinal herbs, and a few other things of relatively useless value. There was also a few Radiant Saint Force-filled pills, which shocked Jian Chun, since the pure Radiant Saint Force in these pills far exceeded his own. These pills are quite unique. I bet this was what the Saint Ruler himself had found. Jian Chun thought. Then, Jian Chun took out the purple and gold box, and opened it slowly, to reveal a small white piece of fur inside. Jian Chun gently took out the fur from the box before suddenly feeling his heart skip a beat. Immediately, he took out the 2 white pieces of fur from his own space ring. These 3 pieces of fur were the exact same size and color. It seemed that they were almost identical. Among the 3 pieces of fur was the one given to Jian Chun by his mother Bai Yuntian, as her farewell gift to him, which in turn was her family heirloom. Just what secret are these strange pieces of fur hiding? Jian Chun held up the 3 pieces of fur with confusion. Jian Chun had privately done his research into this topic many times, but he had never found an answer. Jian Chun knew that there was no way for him to be able to find out the mystery behind the pieces of fur, so he had never tried. Making sure that the 3 pieces of fur were together, he stored them in his space ring once more. Over the next couple of days, Jian Chun and the group continued to idle about in a carefree manner. The strength of the group was enough to deter anyone away from their spot, So the next few days went by for them in their camp peacefully. Every day they would eat 3 meals from the meat of the amethyst thunder lion, while waiting for the competition to end. Jianchen was not idle in this time. Aside from the meals, he would spend every single moment by himself in his tent, in order to study the heaven-tier battle skill he had found in the cave, the Heaven's Stolen Fortune. This battle skill was capable of multiplying one's strength, something Jianchen found incredibly helpful. In this time, many men came across Jianchen's group, but they could only look at the group from afar. Not a single person dared disturb them, and were afraid that if they were to offend them, they would lose their lives. When only 3 days remained in the competition, a bad rumor could be heard circulating about. Up in the north, 3 exceptionally strong men were talked about. Each one of them were a Radiant Saint Force user. This type of Saint Force was seldomly rare to see, but these Radiant Saint Force users were called the Radiant Warriors by most, and the Undying by others. That was because if one of them were to sustain an injury, they were able to quickly heal themselves. Within the battle, if one were not able to kill them in a single strike, then it would be hard to kill them. A Radiant Warrior was able to use the Radiant Saint Force to heal injuries like a Radiant Saint Master. But what was different about them was that they could only heal themselves and not the wounds of another. When these 3 men with the ability to use the Radiant Saint Force appeared, it caused everyone to gossip straight away. That was because Radiant Saint Force was an incredibly rare thing to see on the continent. In a short amount of time, everyone was beginning to compare the 3 to the 5 experts. And in another moment, rumors began to spread. One person said they personally witnessed one of the Radiant Saint Warriors chop off the head of a Class 5 magical beast. Another person said that they saw a Radiant Warrior kill a dozen Earth Saint Masters. No matter the rumors, not a single one of them spoke of the 3 Radiant Warriors on a clear level. When he had heard rumors of these 3, even Jianchen had felt some pressure. That was because within the large Tianyuan continent, he had traveled to many places and met many people. But as for a person with Radiant Saint Force, this was the very first time, because not many Radiant Saint Force users could be found. 3 days quickly went by. Today was the day the survival tournament ended. Jianchen and the others had already packed up their tents and sat around the ground to wait. After half a day, the previously bright place grew dark before the sky instantly grew ashen in color. In the next moment, a strong amount of energy began to warp through the sky, devastating it. As the sky grew darker and darker, the entire area began to grow even more gloomy. The berserk energy within the sky continued to cause turmoil in the sky, before finally cracking the sky, as if someone had shattered it. The crack in the sky continued to expand before quickly filling up the entire place. By now, the entire place was pitch dark without any light visible. Not even a single star could be seen, causing everyone to feel a little pressure. Suddenly, a large attractive force could be felt that even Jianchen felt that he wasn't able to resist. It seemed as if this world was on the verge of collapsing as the entire place grew dark. Jianchen couldn't tell what was happening anymore, but he could feel that an unbelievably strong energy was lifting him into the air. 20 or so breaths into the darkness, it finally cracked before the world resumed its normal appearances. The difference was that not a single person could be seen. Everyone had already been transported away from this place. Suddenly, a strange energy filled the air as the dead bodies of the competitors began to slowly fade away. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.